What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
10 SC, Chapter 226, The Power of Natural Disasters. Light, shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Wow, boss, what's the matter with this guy, he can actually fly. Shanghai, it's a magical place. Hey, isn't the fruit ability that he just showed tends to be liquefied? The Straw Hat crew, who gathered one after another, looked at the commander of the CP who was being dragged into the sky by unknown forces. Before they started to fight, they all ran away. Stupid. It doesn't matter whether you fly or not. The point is how to deal with this guy. It always feels like this guy is starting something amazing. Robin frowned, looking at the figure floating in the air. There was always a sense of familiarity. Cut. No matter how amazing he is, it's better to just smash it all. I'm the man who wants to become the Pirate King. How could these mere things stop me? The nerve-wracking Luffy yelled nonchalantly. 910 showed silver hair tips, swaying with the wind, and it was astonishing that even the ultimate freedom power of the bottom of the box was exerted. That's right. I don't believe that there are things in the world that swordsmen can't cut off. He held two famous knives tightly in both hands, and even held the black knives in his mouth, and none of them leaked. I just don't know who taught me how to speak so clearly while biting a knife. Captain Idiot. Idiot green algae head. That guy doesn't seem to be easy to deal with. It's too easy to rush up to deliver food. Robin helplessly raised his forehead. I finally realized the helplessness of Nami, who usually takes these guys with him. It can't be said that there is no brain, it's just that the brain is stuffed with muscles. The guy who was floating in the air, at first glance, was very wrong. Thunder surrounded, fire blared, and cracks appeared in the surrounding space. Especially that kind of sight that seems to be absent, it is almost like facing the sky. The creepy feeling, only Luffy, the heartless rubber man, can be indifferent. Robin glanced at Luffy calmly, and must have had an idea in his heart. It's all here. Dash dash. An afterimage passed by, and the handsome face of the green bull appeared. Looks like I'm not too late. Fujitora, who drove the gravel down from the sky, pulled his cane and walked out of the smoke. Cough cough. Did the old man barely catch up? A ray of golden light flashed, and Sengoku, who had retreated to his human form, finally shook off the hideous chopper behind him. Rather than fighting with that civet cat, it's better to mix in the center circle and be a spectator. He's a retired old man. It's so scary, the monsters of the Straw Hats have all gathered together. The familiar wretched atmosphere permeates the air, and this time, you don't need to look at it to know who the guy is coming. Kizaru big boy, Luffy shouted with his mouth wide open. What? Click. Just jumped out of the 8-foot mirror teleportation, turned into a human form from photons, and didn't have time to stand firm. The unexpected title made Huang Sir's waist down. Asshole, how many times have I said, I'm not your big man? Kizaru had an angry look on his face. In this kind of scene, saying such words, TMs is simply yellow mud dropping the pants, not urine or feces. But, as Bai Yu said, every time I see you, I have to call you Don't you like this name, Uncle Kazuna? The nervous Luffy looked aggrieved and puzzled. As if wondering why Kizaru, who is the uncle, is not even allowed to call. Full marks for the effect. Of course not. Kizaru looked angry. After the words blurted out, I realized that something was wrong, and quickly made up for it. Do you like it or not, I'm not your uncle at all. We have nothing to do at all, no. Damn, almost, it's over by that guy again. Kizaru, who was almost taken into the pit, accidentally caught a glimpse of the half-smiling expression on Bayu's face, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. How come it doesn't matter? You are obviously my uncle, when you were in. Luffy yelled in dissatisfaction. Fart. When did I promise this relationship? It's clearly slander. Kizaru hurriedly interrupted Luffy's words and argued with reason. I'm not slandering. What I said is true. Kizaru scolds you. Bastard, take the trick, kick at the speed of light. Who is afraid of who? Rubber machine gun. Seeing that the two of them talked more and more urgently, the verbal negotiation quickly developed into a fist-fighting conflict under Kizaru's anxious mood. Activate the final weapon. 0. Flying to the sky, I just wanted to show Kamui's CP chief, but in a blink of an eye, I found that the limelight was all grabbed by the farce below, and I compared myself to a background board. How can this be endured? The uncle can endure it, but the elder sister can't bear it. Experience the power of natural disasters. Chief CP roared loudly. The huge sphere behind it burst out with dazzling brilliance. The indescribable power flooded him, making the CP chief feel like he was omnipotent. Thunder roared in his left hand, lava boiled in his right. The gust of wind beside him howled, and the thunderbolt rang above his head. The inexhaustible Wang Yang was even more boiling under his feet, rushing, roaring, and roaring unwillingly. What a terrifying power! The high temperature of the flame is even more terrifying than my great flame ring. The voltage strength of thunder is also completely comparable to that of my new research, the ultimate thunder god of 1 billion volts. Damn it, you can still be comparable. He manipulates the amount of seawater, and my water style can't keep up. No one would have imagined that the commander of the CP, who jumped up and down, like a monkey, and Blacken's explosive strength, could actually distort this to such an extent. Even if Blacken is 3 times stronger, this is too exaggerated. Even Enel, a self-proclaimed god, couldn't help but feel a deep sense of fear. Whether it is voltage or electricity, at least on the surface, the other party is no less inferior than himself, not to mention that he has other powers of 0.0. Mortal, under the power of God, howl, tremble, atonement. Chief CP opened his hands and embraced the sky. His eyes were full of the intoxication of the mad believers, and he looked like a judge from above. Hey, it always feels so familiar, Enel, isn't this guy your relative? The familiar scene made Straw Hat Crew look a little weird. However, only the rough-hearted Luffy, who could have no external influence at such a time, asked this sentence carelessly. When Straw Hat Crew heard this, they turned their attention to Enel with a big drum. As far as the sophomore pretending is concerned, these two guys are expected to be able to chat together. The same thing, the same way of speaking, even the arrogant eyes, the similarity is as high as 99%, I am afraid that it is really a relative. Chapter 227. That's it. Light. Prison cells worldwide. Bastard, how dare you ignore my existence? Ignored by the Straw Hat Crew again and again, from the invincible boss to the chief CP of the poor background board, the liver is about to explode. Stop, it's terrifying. Bai Yu sucked in a deep breath and put on a shocked expression on his face. After maintaining for a while, he converged back to his original appearance, and said expressionlessly. Are you satisfied with this? Damn, you dare to ask me. Die for me, die, die. Bai Yu's cooperation without any hesitation was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. The last decent fig leaf was torn off by the CP chief personally, and the fanatical face became extremely ferocious, like an alien invasion. That guy was tricked and started to lose his mind, shouldn't he? Losing one's senses doesn't mean becoming a fool. World government's secret weapon is not that simple. Fujitora and Green Bull looked at each other calmly, and after exchanging their ideas, 12 touched away, and the two had a tacit understanding. It was like a huge volcano erupted in the sky. Endless lava slid from the sky, the hot lava poured down wine, and the crimson rock fell with a long flame tail, like a meteor. This is not manpower at all, the attack that can be caused is clearly a natural disaster. Hado's 96 and 1 knife cremation. The high-profile sacrificial Hado, after giving up singing, was cast by Bai Yu in an alternative way. In his hand, Jin Kunluo swung forward vigorously, and a huge knife-shaped flame pierced out of his body. Boom boom boom. They collided with magma and rocks head-on, blocking their tendency to fall, making a loud bang and turning into ashes in the knife-like flames. Melting fire with fire, Leng is to stop the natural disaster like volcanic eruption. Wow. As expected of the deputy captain, this hand control method is too strong, I must discuss it afterward. Ace looked at Bai Yu with excitement. Beautiful. That's it, kill all these arrogant guys. The cute chopper jumps 3 feet high. As expected of my co-captain. Bai Yu is awesome. The first battle was a great victory, Luffy gave him a thumbs up, and his snow-white teeth also reflected the radiance of blood in the sunlight. In the Straw Hat Crew, in the generally happy atmosphere, Fujitora shook his head indifferently. Natural disasters are not so easy to obliterate. Tightening her bathrobe, Fujitora looked up at the sky. How can the power of mortals annihilate the attack of the gods? Feel the despair, this is the power from the sky. Chief CP's face was extremely rampant, and Sora waved his right hand outwards. The magma that was burned by the flames turned into ashes, and lava emerged again. It appeared in the air as if it was inexhaustible. Rumbling. In the hands of the CP chief, the power of thunder also rushed down not to be outdone. The ultimate current of 1 billion volts has the destructive power of thunder, but also has the high temperature of the ultimate. The power is extraordinary, it seems that we can't take it lightly. After relaxing for so long, by Yu's indifference, he finally got serious. Super railgun. Lei Ying. Hand spilled a handful of seastone coins. After Cuz finished Enel's Thor state, Bai Yu pirated Nami's Nirvana. It is worthy of being every 3 to 5, opening a small stove. When used, it looks like a model. With the blessing of comprehensive power, the power is probably dozens or hundreds of times stronger than the genuine Nami. The dazzling thunder light bloomed from Bai Yu's hands, turned directly into beams of light, and greeted the falling thunder in the sky like a god's punishment. Stab Lala. The plasma splattered everywhere, like a thunder Wong Yang. Humph. If you can block the volcano, thunder, I want to see how you can resist the power of the wind. Chief CP snorted coldly and directly used the wind that was swirling around him. Woohoo! Lingbei hurricane roared. Not the usual cold wind, hot wind, but the most terrifying natural disaster on the sea, typhoon. As soon as the terrifying storm appeared, it directly swept the entire battlefield. No matter how far or near, not a single ship is not affected. The bulging sails made the ship not even qualified to operate autonomously, and the soldiers on the deck could not stand up even if they were enemy or ally. Those with a strength lower than Rear Admiral did not even have the strength to protect themselves under this storm. The terrifying distance of hundreds of nautical miles is crushed. How can it be called an attack? This is clearly a natural disaster, as the CP chief said, God's punishment. God, I got angry last time, run away. Run. Where can you run? The entire sea area is covered by this storm. Even the power system has failed, this is not a force that people can resist. How can you resist this power? The CP chief looked over triumphantly with a look of victory on his face. Even if he was carried away and lost his mind, this guy still couldn't forget to challenge Bai Yu. One blade stream 360 troubled Phoenix. Bai Yu didn't speak, but answered directly with Jin Kunluo in his hand. The huge sword energy was cut out from Jin Kunluo, and Bai Yu, who was copy Zoro's ultimate trick, directly used the sword's exclusive flat A flying slash. The continuous slashing slashed out from Jin Kunluo and met the sharp blade hidden in the storm. In the blink of an eye, there were far more than 3,910 shots, and the number was still increasing. Lululu. The wind and the slashing staggered past, competing to disappear and disappear into the air. Useless. Struggle. The storms are endless, just relying on your slash, it's not even a drop in the bucket. Chief CP sneered disdainfully. It's now. Bai Yu's eyes lit up, and Jin Kunluo swung out vigorously. One sword flowing profound meaning, one sword Asura. Kang. If there is a seemingly non-existent sword chant, it sounds from Jin Kunluo. Blue fireworks burned on Bai Yu's body, and a sword that gathered all his power bloomed in the air. What? The long and narrow blade flashed away in a flash, and everyone didn't even have a chance to react. You can only watch it helplessly, slashing towards the eye of the wind in the center of the typhoon. Wrapped in the will to cut off everything, the sword incarnated as Shura, slammed into the darkness, as if even light could kill and annihilate the wind. What made everyone other than the battle was supposed to be like a big collision between the heavens and the earth, but it was rare that there was no sound at all, and it was even a little scary. The edge of the battlefield. The wind has stopped. A marine soldier tremblingly loosened his grip on the mast, his face full of disbelief. Live, survive. Another marine soldier, touching his face, slumped to the ground, full of the rest of his life. Chapter 228. Success in one fell swoop. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Center of the battlefield. That's it. Bai Yu slowly put away Jin Kunluo in his hand, without saying a word, he gave him a light look. The bright meaning in his eyes couldn't be more obvious. You bastard, you actually despise God's ruling. The CP chief who understood Bai Yu's eyes, was so angry that one Buddha was born and two Buddhas ascended to heaven. The thunderbolt he held in his hand was almost deformed by him. He was so embarrassed that he could no longer hold the high shelf, and directly wrapped the electricity into his body. In a state of anger, there was only one thought in his mind, he personally punched the flesh with his fists, and smashed the guy in front of him to death, in order to relieve the anger in his heart. Suffer to death. Lightning flashed in the air, and before the roar of the CP chief could be heard, his attack had already reached Bai Yu. 8 inner gates. Shock gate. Open. 8 inner gates formation. Bai Yu, who had been expecting it for a long time, turned into a long scarlet dragon. Without dodging, without evading, he directly greeted him, the silver training incarnation of the CP chief. Boom boom boom. Between fists and feet, there was a sound of thunder, and electric sparks were chiseled out of the air. When the two fought each other, the plasma overflowed and the sonic boom sounded, and no place where they landed was intact. In the blink of an eye, I don't know how many warships were killed in the aftermath of the battle between the two of them. All I could see was that Bai Yu turned into a crimson blood dragon, and a silver-white lightning bolt collided constantly in the air, squeezing them abruptly. Even. The blood is long, and the shadows seem to have the upper hand. An unyielding epic in which manpower fights against natural disasters is deduced. It's scary. This guy has such a level of physical skills, no wonder even Mr. GARP. Kizaru's pupils shrank, and deep fear rose in his heart. This guy seems to have been completely tricked by this kid, do we want to? Don't worry. If the world government is pressing the bottom of the box, if it is so easy for the other side, they are afraid that they will be overthrown long ago, and it will not be until now. That is a natural disaster. Green Bull and Fujitora, the two good brothers looked at each other calmly and read the Green Bull who understood Fujitora's facial expressions, and finally held down what was in their hearts. As predicted. Can you fight? Then let me see how much you can fight. Chief CP's angry voice resounded in the sky where the two were fighting. He was completely pissed off, who didn't get the slightest advantage in several fights. Endless storms swept across the land and sea. Purple thunder comes down from the sky to judge. Scorching lava flows and rages on the sea. The swift lightning is entangled with the blood dragon. I see how you can fight alone. CP's face was extremely hideous. The 4 ranged attacks swept the audience, like a natural disaster, and it was not something that could be stopped by manpower. No matter how strong Bai Yu is, he can still deal with 2 or 3 kinds. Not to mention, with a slashing slash, the wind eye was completely destroyed, but within the blink of an eye, it was reborn in another place. Calamity can't be destroyed. Natural disasters can never be matched by manpower. Chief CP roared proudly. Can't it be destroyed? Bai Yu frowned. Everything has a bearing limit. It is impossible to exist in a state of energy conservation, and things that can be reborn without limit, at least in this world. Bai Yu affirmed. Battles are starting to get interesting. Bai Yu tilted his neck, and the tips of his jet black hair turned into bright silver. Zai Ji Yi Gong quietly opened. Hado of 99, 5 swirling dragons of destruction. In the learning process, Kido, the highest-ranking character, was recklessly used by Bai Yu after he gave up singing. Although only 1/3 of the power, the highest-level Kido still has amazing strength. A dark blue ancient dragon, realized by Hollow from behind Bai Yu. Roar. The roar of the dragon, the bearer comes from the suppression from the depths of the soul. Stop me. Bai Yu shouted angrily. Roar. On the deep blue ancient giant dragon, a strange curse power emerged, which spread to the entire battlefield in an instant. No one could stop it, no one could stop it. Damn it. Calamity has resisted. The general manager of CP sank like water. It only takes 3 seconds, and after 3 seconds, it can be completely untied. Quote. The total length of CP, who is always restless, counts the time to live. The proud power of God was actually resisted by an ordinary human being, even if it was only for a mere 3 seconds. The huge impact still made him feel uneasy in his heart. It's now. Bai Yu Yamanaka flashed fiercely. Shura. The power of dozens of devil fruits bloomed in the body, and the abilities of the companions on board also spewed out at the same time. One knife flow, profound meaning, great shock. A godlike aura bloomed from Bai Yu's body, and all the people or things around him, and even the flow of air, seemed to be deterred by this aura, and temporarily stagnated. A sword light like a river of spring water flows in the air, like a dream and a fantasy. When someone reacted, the spring water like knife light still arrived in front of him. Damn it, it's actually a sneak attack. Chief CP's pupils shrank. But I'm not that easy to deal with. Even if it's a sneak attack. Chief CP, with his fists like electricity, hurriedly punched directly towards the blade and greeted him. With natural disaster like lightning, and a dark armed color package, even if it is a pair of fleshy palms, he is fully confident and can resist the sharp edge of the supreme knife. Sing. Lightning staggered, but the knife light slid past his lightning fist. What? Chief CP looked puzzled. Did this guy go astray? Impossible. The unreliable idea was thrown away by him after a second thought. The dignified leader of the most evil, whose swordsmanship is not weaker than the replica of the world's greatest swordsman, Bai Yu, can still be inaccurate if they are short-handed. It would be better to say that the Murlocs were drowned by the seawater, and the credibility of such words may be even higher. Boom. Just when the commander of CP was at a loss, a loud bang suddenly came from behind him. Turning around stiffly, I saw a river of spring water exploded. It turned into countless lingering sword lights, and each one contained the will to smash everything. The sword light flew up and down, forming a terrifying blade storm. The degree of sharpness, even if his watch block is lightning, it will not be good to go in. Dash. So that's the case, catch the thief first, catch the king. Robin's eyes lit up, and he finally understood Bai Yu's intention. Zhang Guang avoided the CP chief, raged behind him, and took the huge ball of light behind him. A powerful slash, enough to obliterate all objects. The endless sword light splits the air, the light, the heaven and the earth. Success. What? Robin looked at the sky and was completely destroyed by the blade storm, leaving no residue behind. He was completely dissociated by the slash and turned into a huge ball of light. His face was full of disbelief. Chapter 229, An Indestructible Attack. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. For her, world government has always been a shadow boulder in her heart. Even if her strength is not what it used to be, she is no longer Ohara, the powerless little girl she used to be, but every time she encounters the world government, she still has a kind of feeling that sinks in her heart. In particular, the other party has also brought out what it claims is the secret weapon of the world government. Result. It was so easy to be instantly killed by Bai Yu. In addition to the surprise, Robin couldn't help but be in disbelief. Really? Solved. Of course. Didn't you see that the ball turned into scum, as expected of my vice captain, but I won't give up. After all, I'm the man who wants to become the pirate king, ha ha ha. This terrible slash, it seems that the deputy captain's swordsmanship is far stronger than I imagined. Bai Yu, he seems to be getting stronger again. The missing light ball in the sky gave Straw Hat Crew sufficient confidence. Although this fight feels a bit anticlimactic. But, Yu is not like that. With the deputy captain, no matter how strange the battle process is, it will be a normal operation. Who let that be Bai Yu? Hey, that's what you said, no problem. That guy's secret weapon 910 has been destroyed. The green cow's face was very strange. Although he didn't speak, he secretly winked at Fujitora frantically. Don't worry, number 0 is a replica of that thing. If it was so easy to solve, the world government would not have been able to hold that seat for so many years. Fujitora tightened her purple bathrobe, her face moving slightly. You mean that thing? Lu Niu's pupils shrank, and while his eyes were extremely fearful, he suppressed all thoughts in his heart. Of course. Fujitora nodded indistinctly, and withdrew his expression. The old god was there as a background board. Success. It's still early. The voice from the yin side of the CP chief came from a distance, confirming that what Fujitora said was true. Roar. A deafening roar resounded from the heavens and the earth. That guy, the thing behind that guy, appeared again. Usopp cried and said, pointing at the CP chief. Behind him, originally empty, a huge ball of light suddenly appeared tens of meters. Exactly the same as before. Even, it vaguely gave people the illusion that it was a little more powerful. Wind, thunder, fire, electricity. Several natural disasters that had just dissipated swept across the battlefield when it was time to do so. It was as if Bai Yu had just hit Cheng Hong through the sun with all his strength, but it didn't have the slightest effect, and it all hit the air. Illusion. No. All entities. Bai Yu's face was solemn. He was sure that what was just chopped up by the sword light was definitely a real thing. Instead of some Kyoka Suigetsu, an illusion that deceives the five senses. Could it be that, as this guy said, there is no limit to rebirth? Liar. Yes. How can there be such an unreasonable ability in the world? But if it's not, then how to explain this? The core can be shattered. The weird rebirth and the terrifying reset made Straw Hat Crew unable to sit still, and all the discussions began to rise. Ha ha ha, I've said it before, this is the power of God. It's definitely not something that mortals can resist. Watching the scene of Straw Hat Crew arguing, he consciously pulled back the chief CP of a city, and finally regained his previous complacent feeling and laughed wildly. The wind stopped, the rain stopped, Urguzi felt that he could do it again. This is derived from the power of the sky. The energy does not refer to the flood of energy, but the erosion of power. It has eroded more than 80% of the world's will. It's enough, let me manipulate the power of natural disaster. This is the power that symbolizes disaster between heaven and earth. Even if it is chopped up, as long as the disaster exists, it can be reborn infinitely. Quote. How can the mere manpower be consumed for days? This is the exclusive use of the descendants of the Creator. The Great, Uranus's power. CP Chief BCAA showed off triumphantly, enjoying the unique joy of the winner. Under the power of God, despair. He couldn't wait to see this damn replicator, showing the look of being played badly. Despair. Howl. Ha ha ha. Chief CP turned his head impatiently, but was greeted by Bai Yu's indifferent expression. Bastard. Under the power of God, how dare you? How dare you? The wind and fire, the thunder and lightning, and the raging calamity in the sky, all showed the anger in his heart. So, just smash the disaster he represents behind him. Bai Yu looked at the CP chief indifferently, and there was no wave in the ancient well in his eyes. What? If that's the case, then come and try my trick. It's just a disaster, how can it stop me? I'm a man who wants to chase freedom. Looking at the raging natural disaster on the sea, Bai Yu's heart was rarely filled with pride, and he was restrained, and unexpectedly issued a Luffy-like declaration. You, what do you want to do? Under the power of God, don't kneel down and surrender. The head of CP was nervous, Bai Yu's abnormal performance made him feel bad, and he couldn't help but try. What? The only answer to him was a chuckle from Bai Yu. Shura. The exclusive skills are activated, and dozens of different powers spew out from Bai Yu's body. One knife flow. Profound meaning. One knife Shura. All the power blooms in an instant. Holding Jin Kunluo Bai Yu, it turned into an irreversible sword light and shuttled across the battlefield. All the attacks that stopped in front of him were all smashed by the decisive sword light. Hurricane, thunder, lava, all turned into ashes one by one, and the powerful swordsmanship slash is enough to disintegrate all substances. The picture was finally frozen, a dazzling sword light pierced through the huge light ball and shattered it into pieces. The escaping sword light is still wiping out the broken part of the light ball, and it looks like he will not be reconciled unless he disintegrates and disappears. Dying, struggling, you really can't see the coffin without tears. CP always had a face full of disdain. I thought it was an unexpected method, but I didn't expect it to be this trick again. Although the power was much stronger than what was revealed before. But, the power of man, no matter how strong it is, can never compete with God. Chief CP's eyes flickered, and he directly activated the power of natural disasters, resetting the number 0 behind him. Ding is blocked by an unknown external force, the reset fails, and the resettable fails. The indifferent mechanical sound rang in the ears of the chief executive of CP. He thought that he was in control of everything and took no hassle, and he listened directly. What's the situation? Reset me. Quick, reset me. Seeing that the great demon king Bai Yu was close at hand, his biggest reliance suddenly fell off the chain, and the CP chief panicked when he asked for it. Chapter 230. Cut off with one knife. Hey, aren't you quite arrogant? Why, can't touch it. On the ball of light dozens of meters, Bai Yu pressed his hands on the sword, and the Jin Kunluo sword intent in his hand pierced him completely. It's you. Meeting Bai Yu's half-smile but not smiling eyes, the CP chief still doesn't know what's going on. The abnormality of number 0 is clearly caused by this guy in front of him. How is it possible? This is the power of God. How can the replica of the ultimate treasure Uranus's be a mere human being, something that can be stopped? Like a huge shock, the world view of the CP chief is about to collapse. His eyes were empty and silent, like a salted fish who had lost his dreams, and he was no different from a walking corpse. It must be an illusion. Yes, it's an illusion. They're all lying to me. He had the absolute upper hand just now and fell into the dust in the blink of an eye. He couldn't accept this fact at all. Illusion. That's it. The corners of Bai Yu's mouth lifted lightly, and he smiled evilly. Sword intent burst forth in his hand, and the power brewing in his body poured out through Jin Kunluo. In one fell swoop, he disintegrated the huge ball of light under him, and dealt a heavy blow to the commander-in-chief of CP who was on the verge of collapse. For so long, he really thinks that Bai Yu has no temper. Boom. A dazzling sword light advanced, and a dazzling firework exploded in the sky. It's all gone. It's all gone. Gone. Even the power of God, the descendant of the Creator. The commander-in-chief of CP, who was domineering a moment ago, has become crazy now, and he is constantly muttering to himself, a look that is driven crazy by the bloody reality. 1. Wow, that's great. In order to celebrate the defeat of the enemy, I decided to hold a party to celebrate. Uncle Kizaru, come with you too. Bastard. Straw Hat, shut up. I've said it many times, I'm not related to you in any way. Hey, why don't you come if you don't come? Why beat me, second grandma, if Uncle Kizaru doesn't come, do you want to come together? Second grandma, Sengoku. I crack. Two good friends, Straw Hat Crew, Fujitora and Green Bull, who have no time to deal with the mess, are communicating frantically through looks. Hey, are you sure it's alright? This guy is about to be driven crazy. Could it be that he pretended this? I didn't expect him to be so deep. No, not necessarily. I think judging from that guy's city government, it's probably true. Really, you were really cornered by that boy Bai Yu. Didn't you say that it was a weapon under the world government's bottom line, and it was destroyed so easily? Maybe. Probably so. Fujitora tightened the purple bathrobe on her body, and her gulky face twitched uncontrollably. The guy from the CP organization is too rubbish. As a local tyrant and gold player, even if he is pressed and beaten by the big tech giants, he can't beat him in the end, and he can still be killed by others. Really are. For a while, Fujitora couldn't find words to describe this guy. Even if the CP organization is inferior to one generation, this is too exaggerated to decay. Bai Yu, are you alright? A flower bloomed quietly, passing Robin's concerned voice. Don't worry, come on, it's just dealing with a little scoundrel, it's not easy to catch. Bai Yu glanced at his mouth nonchalantly, making Robin feel at ease. But the heart is not so easy. So close. Bai Yu couldn't help but secretly changed his breath. If it weren't for the battle between Bigmom and Kaido a while ago, the force of destruction within the body was forcibly activated, allowing them to become a controllable force. Today's battle is not so easy to solve. Able to regenerate without limit, and its power is enormous, like a natural disaster attack, it is definitely the most difficult opponent Bai Yu has encountered since his debut. Even step by step, bring the other party into the ditch. But under absolute power, all intrigues will appear as fragile as paper tigers. All kinds of means are used, but they can barely suppress the opponent's strength, and there is no chance of suppressing the victory at all. He directly gave Bai Yu a blow to the head, telling others that there are people outside, and there are days outside the sky. His current strength is far from enough to despise everything. Moreover, the other party can recover in an instant, but his own strength is constantly losing. If it continues like this in the long run, it must end with the fact that one's own strength is exhausted. Fortunately, and that power, derived from Whitebeard, from a mysterious place, born to destroy the power of destruction. Originally, Bai Yu just went to the doctor in a panic, with the idea of taking a shot. All kinds of power in the body are used in turn. Who would have thought that when his blind cat met a dead mouse, and the moment the power of destruction was poured into Jin Kunluo, Bai Yu keenly felt something was wrong. The power of destruction and the fusion of Jin Kunluo seemed to produce a wonderful chemical reaction. The power begins to change dramatically. But, before Bai Yu could study it carefully, a natural disaster-like attack had already arrived in front of him. Before he could think about it, Bai Yu swung his sword directly, but the effect was amazing and effective. Like a hot knife cutting butter. 0. Stab. Cut directly from it, Bai Yu's hand holding the knife did not even feel the slightest resistance. Silky smooth, without the slightest stagnation. The part that Jin Kunluo cut off, Bai Yu could even feel that there was a residual force of destruction covering it, preventing his ability to recover. Bai Yu's eyes lit up. Of course he would not miss the opportunity, and he directly chased after the victory to cut all the power brewing in Jin Kunluo on the center of the natural disaster, the ball of light. It also formed the scene that everyone just saw before everyone's eyes. The power of destruction exuding the breath of great destruction, wrapped around Jin Kunluo in Bai Yu's hands, and the dark sword light disintegrated everything into nothingness. Above the huge ball of light, a gleaming radiance emerged, as if trying to make a final resistance before dying, but in the end it was just a dying struggle. On Jin Kunluo, the pitch-black force swallowed all the radiance on the ball of light, not only did not cause the slightest damage. On the contrary, Jin Kunluo's blade ushered in a change, and strange lines appeared on the dark blade, as if it were a planetary trajectory in space. Ding. Now a special carrier. Ding is trying to link, the identity of the holder is being verified by force. Bai Yu, eyes narrowed. Jin Kunluo, who has always been peaceful in his hands and used as a weapon of magic, suddenly became restless, conveying a desire for the power of destruction. It is extremely strong, like a traveler in the desert, thirsting for water. 0. Chapter 231, Uranus's Uranus. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. I want to see, what's the moth going on? A stern look flashed in Bai Yu's eyes, activating the power of destruction entrenched in his body. For Jin Kunluo's anomaly, he couldn't help but curiously probed. Anyway, the most difficult guy has been solved, and the remaining 3 Admiral and Sengoku, the small partners on the boat, are fully enough to deal with. At least there is no problem in self-preservation. Take it easy, Bai Yu's, let it go. He is the golden Kunluo on his opponent, and the secret hidden in it is very curious. In order to get him back from his own hands, Marine had to fight over and over again. I don't know how much manpower and material resources were spent. If it was just an ordinary sword, he wouldn't believe it. In my own hands, I haven't found any clues for so long, and it's not easy to make noise now. How could Bai Yu just miss it so easily? Not to be missed. Bai Yu's 910. Hard is next, no longer slowly inputting temptation, but directly pouring the power of destruction in the body into the blade. Don't want or. That's all for you. The dark power of destruction lingered on the blade, and the thick aura of destruction pressed down on the battlefield. Slightly timid, he couldn't even stand firm, and just sat on the ground with his buttocks. Even the 3 admirals entered the fighting stance one after another, and even the most laid-back Fujitora did not dare to relax at all. Vigilance was written on the face of the gully. However, Bai Yu didn't bother to pay attention to them, and Ishin was immersed in Jin Kunluo's changes. Ding. Power verification passed. Authorization is in progress. Ding. Authorization is successful. The current sequence is 6. Ding. King Uranus is responding. Uranus. Uranus. Bai Yu's pupils shrank. A ruthless mechanical sound rang in his ears, making him, who has always been calm, couldn't help but be surprised. It's actually the most mysterious Uranus among the 3 ancient weapons. No wonder Marine has always been obsessed with Jin Kunluo. Feeling the power from Jin Kunluo, Bai Yu understood a little. Vaguely, I always felt as if through Jin Kunluo, I had touched an indescribably huge will, vast and broad, as if facing a world. Consciousness only touched a little, and the endless stream of information rushed in, almost completely sinking him into it. Luckily, someone from the outside shook his body, and he hurried back with a moment of sobriety. Bai Yu, are you alright? The flower bloomed out of thin air, and Robin's arm reached out from inside, grabbed Bai Yu's body, and swayed back and forth. Huh. It's alright. Bai Yu shook his head, feeling like he had passed away. Really, you just stood motionless, I thought you. Bean-sized tears fell from Robin's eyes, and Bai Yu's worries were written on his beautiful face. Of course. Bai Yu nodded, moved to Robin's side, reached out and rubbed the girl's soft hair. Then we now. There was some hesitation in Robin's eyes. Of course, let's get rid of this annoying guy first. Bai Yu turned his head and looked at the CP chief who was pretending to be crazy and selling stupid. He's not a man who doesn't reciprocate. As a thank you to this guy for bringing the power of Uranus to himself, Bai Yu decided to give him a hand, send him on his way. To save him a dignified CP chief, it's too embarrassing to be demented in a place like this. Or let yourself give him a treat. Don't be grateful, after all, someone helped him activate Uranus. Even if it's the 6th sequence, it doesn't sound good, but it has something to do with Uranus. It's a mere pleasure, and Bai Yu still doesn't mind shooting. You, what do you want? Don't kill me. I'm a direct descendant of the celestial dragons, you can't kill me. Meet Bai Yu's sensible gaze, and behind the icy long knife. Chief CP felt in an instant that his head was not too early, his brain was not crazy, and he could speak quickly. He didn't dare to pretend to be crazy anymore, but begged for mercy with a face full of horror. He has just ascended to a high position, he hasn't had time to enjoy it yet, he doesn't want to die yet. Don't worry, soon. The sword light flashes and it's over, it doesn't hurt. Bai Yu smiled gently and comforted him. However, in the eyes of the chief executive of CP, it was like a devil's smile. Marine, yes, come and protect me. If I die, you won't be able to eat Kabuto and go. Kizaru, Sengoku, now's your chance to prove you're not undercover from Straw Hat Crew. And Chingshong, quickly order them to save me. Right now, he looks like a man who is about to drown. Whenever he grasps a little strength, he will hold it tightly in his hand, and he will not dare to relax at all. Oh, you want to stop me from helping my benefactor get free? Bai Yu chuckled and turned his head to look at Marine who was serving as the background board. Ah, the sun is so dazzling today. Oops, what should I do if I accidentally cut my nails and hurt my fingers? Cough cough cough. The senbei got stuck in the throat after eating too much, vomit, I'm dying. The 3 admiral over there, and a certain veteran, don't have to pretend to be so fake if they don't want to do it, right? Huang sir, you are a Logia-capable person, and your body can be elementalized at will, but you were injured by nail clippers. Could it be that this nail clipper also learned armament hockey? Sengoku, you are even more speechless. It is common for everyone with fruit ability and hard to resist artillery shells. Tell me, if you eat senbei, even if you eat it, you are about to suffocate your throat. Feelings, you are eating senbei made by sea stone. The most outrageous one is Fujitora. You blind man with closed eyes, what kind of dazzling sunlight are you giving me? You even hang up your hands, what a mess. You. Several people did not hesitate to prevaricate, turning CP's face into a pig's liver color. He pointed at them tremblingly, as if he wanted to say something. The next moment, a sword light suddenly bloomed in the air. Sing. The sound of sword chants sounded 0.0 in the sky, bringing a sword energy to practice, like a long rainbow penetrating the sun, and it directly penetrated towards the body of the chief CP. The dark red blood poured out like a fountain, leaving him with dead eyes. As I said, my sword is fast and doesn't hurt at all. Bai Yu's right hand shook, and the dark power of destruction spurted out from Jin Kunluo's hand. In the blink of an eye, his body disintegrated into ashes and disappeared into the air, leaving no residue left. This time, you don't even need to keep your eyes closed, just clean up. It's done. Does anyone have an opinion? Bai Yu clapped his hands and casually swept into the field. The third admiral took the poor nails, the one who looked at the sun looked at the sun, the one who whistled, and the other veteran was sitting on the ground and knocking senbei. Chapter 232. The Master of Dumping the Pot, Fujitora. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Joke. To provoke a killing god for an arrogant clown. Unless their brain drained. Among the Marines who had the strength to stop them, there was not a single one who had a cold against the celestial dragons, let alone risking their lives to save their direct agency. If it weren't for the wrong timing and position restrictions, the lazy Kizaru might not be, but the impatient Sengoku would definitely have made a move long ago. How dare you slander him? The rest of the people have all suffered from this guy's sarcasm, so no one would stick a hot face to a cold butt, licking his face to help. With Marines sitting on the sidelines and the CP members all being trashy fish and unable to get involved, of course, this stuff can only be eaten neatly. Woohoo! Big win. To celebrate, let's have a big party. The nerve-wracking Luffy jumped out and broke the deadlock in the confrontation. Captain Idiot. Marine hasn't retreated yet, and the battle isn't over yet and there's no banquet. Robin couldn't help but opened a flower on Luffy, reached out and gave him a shudder. Ow, it hurts. 12 Luffy held his head in pain, with an innocent look on his face, isn't that guy solved? What else is there to fight? They won't want to fight again. Hey, are you still fighting? Luffy yelled in dissatisfaction. Fujitora's throat tightened and he couldn't speak when asked. As the Straw Hat Boy said, they used it as their trump card to deal with Bai Yu, the CP chief, who had already brought his number 0 and played GG in laughter and laughter. Although at present, the Marine camp suffered few casualties, and for Wano Kuni, it still has the absolute upper hand. 10. In terms of cutting-edge combat power, it is really too bad. 4 Admiral-level strengths are only enough to hold down the members of Straw Hat crew, and no one can stop the most terrifying person Bai Yu. If he is allowed to attack on the battlefield, especially if the guy is still in control, all kinds of terrifying group attack abilities will cause absolutely limitless damage to Marine. Even if it was a fluke in the end, Wano Kuni was annihilated, and the Straw Hat crew was smashed, he wanted to use Wano Kuni as the basic plan to fight against the ambition of the world government. Then Marine must have suffered heavy losses. After losing his current strength, only relying on the military strength of the headquarters, there is absolutely no way to check and balance this sea of pirates. At that time, the sea will usher in a bloody era that is definitely more chaotic. Let's go. Fujitora's brows were furrowed, and the gullies were filled with sadness. The art of politics is, after all, a compromise. The so-called war is nothing but a continuation of politics. It has come to this point, and with Marine's strength alone, there is no way to undo it. The strongest taijutsu hero, GARP, is absent, and with Marine's current cutting-edge fighting power, he can barely stop the Straw Hat crew members, and he is unable to entangle Bai Yu. Let's leave it to the world government. Anyway, the basin is on them, and it has nothing to do with Marine. The master of dumping the pot, Tang Yishao Tiger. Look, they're all gone, my banquet can be held. Luffy raised an eyebrow at Robin with a smug look on his face. Watching Marines evacuating warships, Robin always felt something was wrong. The nerve-wracking Luffy, of course, doesn't care about her refraining from talking, this guy's mind is full of food at the banquet. Woohoo, Sanji, go and take out the octopus I treasured in the cabin. Captain, the giant octopus was eaten by our charcoal grill 10 days ago. Huh, then eat the gigantic tuna we caught in the ocean last time. Tuna was at a banquet last week and was eaten. What? Then let's have a super delicious barbecue today. The reserve meat is just finished. How is it possible? Then what else do we have? Rubber Man Luffy, Yan wasted slumped to the ground, like a salted fish who lost his ideals. What is the difference between a life without meat and salted fish? Nicholas Luffy. There are only some small cakes left. Captain, do you want to satisfy your cravings? Sanji took a plate of love cake and handed it to Luffy, who had faded into black and white. It seems that Sanji specially reserved it for the young lady, but unfortunately they didn't want to leave it. This is already the last food on the boat. No way, a boat is full of rice buckets, the chef said there was nothing he could do. Blame my cooking, it's so delicious. Ooh, barbecue. Woohoo. Pork chop. Woohoo. Tuna. While swallowing the small cake quickly, she cried sadly and became a 300-pound child. Idiot, we're not at sea, we can't buy it in Wano-kuni when we go back. In such a big country, what do you want to eat? Besides, it's just meat, do you need to look like the end of the world? Facing these two living treasures, Bai Yu raised his forehead and couldn't help but complain. Usually in charge of these living treasures on the boat, Nami is really suffering and tired. Bai Yu once again deeply realized that Nami was tired of being the big butler of the Straw Hats. Nami. Meow meow sigh, life is not easy, I'm too hard. That's right, we are in Wano-kuni, we can go shopping for delivery. As expected of my deputy captain, Bai Yu, you are so smart. Luffy, who had just woken up from a big dream, gave Bai Yu a ruthless thumbs up. Quote. Can only return him 910 polite but embarrassing smile. Let's go, I can't wait, barbecue, pork chops, octopus. Luffy, who was immersed in the food world, couldn't wait to urge. Bai Yu was about to respond when suddenly his heart moved, and he turned to look not far ahead. Bai Yu, what's wrong? Robin, who noticed something was wrong, hurried over and asked with a concerned look. Want to leave? If you want to leave if you kill someone, the face of the world government is too worthless. A low voice sounded faintly from the sky, followed by two figures descending from the sky. A dog wearing a dog hat, struggling to fight with donuts, is the GARP that Fujitora misses. The other is a bald old man with a beard and eyes in a Japanese kimono. The faint cold voice came from the mouth of a bald old man with a long knife in his arms. This. Love. Iron Fist. The nervous Luffy, before he could say anything, was punched in the face by GARP. Being caught off guard, he was directly punched and smashed heavily to the ship in the distance. Sneak attack. Grandpa, you are so despicable. From the ruins of the ship, Luffy, who struggled to climb out, spat out the sawdust at the corner of his mouth in dissatisfaction. Chapter 233. GARP's Gamble. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Sneak attack doesn't count. Start over if you have the ability. With a loud shout, GARP just wanted to rush up, and GARP played a good game to prove his strength. Luffy saw GARP and fought with Bai Yu first. A long blood dragon turned into red steam, fighting with GARP's dark armament hockey. As expected of a man called Iron Fist. He didn't use any special ability, just relying on pure physical skills. With one punch and one kick, even the air was oscillated into ripples visible to the naked eye. Bai Yu, boy, let's go. If you don't go, you won't have a chance. Go with Luffy. What, GARP, what the hell do you mean? I don't have time to explain so much. As I said, the determination of the world government on Wano-kuni is far beyond your imagination. Don't think that you can sit back and relax after solving, no. 0 inches. Their most powerful top secret weapon, you still haven't seen it. It seems that you are in a life and death fight, but the actual danger is small and pitiful. The two who were tacit, took advantage of the chance that the fists and the flesh were intertwined, and they started a dialogue and conversation without any emotion. GARP, in particular, has been eagerly urging Bai Yu to leave. Although he was able to deal with the chief CP who was driving, number 0, it was far beyond his expectations, but the ultimate secret of world government is not so simple. That is the ultimate weapon of despair, even the rebellious One Piece Roger. He was so desperate that he couldn't even raise his emotions of resistance. I can only be sad, at the cost of my own life, say Onepiece's last words on the execution ground, burn myself into a torch, and illuminate the hope of future resistance. Putting hope on future generations, looking forward to the birth of an era that is truly strong enough to resist the power of the world government. Come on, if it's too late, it'll be trouble. You shouldn't die here. Taking advantage of another staggered fist and palm, GARP advised Bai Yu in a deep voice. In the vicissitudes of life, you can't see the slightest bit of the usual condescending, only a strong sincerity. He is sincere, hoping that Bai Yu can escape from what he thinks is a crisis, not only because of Luffy by his side, but also because of what he sees in him. Hope. What Roger told him in the first place, hope. This shouldn't be your end. GARP took a huge risk and risked his life to persuade and cover Bai Yu's departure, just for this paltry hope. Roger gambled his life on what he saw as the future. GARP gambled his life on Bai Yu. Whether it is from the revolutionary program he told long before, or from the speed of his growth now. Bai Yu is the one who is most likely to achieve justice in his eyes, no one. But the overthrow of corruption is something to come. No matter how powerful the eagle is, it is still weak in the age of chicks. Although he is willing to bet everything on Bai Yu, GARP still does not feel that the current Bai Yu has the strength to face the world government. Even if he is not angry, GARP has to admit that the power represented by the guy behind him is definitely far more terrifying than imagined. That is absolutely not the existence that human beings can resist. Come on. Pure power, bursting from the GARP iron fist. The oncoming force made Bai Yu, who was caught off guard, follow him. He was punched and flew out. The powerful force gave up the point-to-point killing, but transformed it into a point-to-point impact. It didn't cause much damage to Bai Yu, but directly knocked him out of the battlefield for more than 10 miles. Is he forcing me to leave? Bai Yu blinked and understood GARP's intentions. After forcing Luffy and me out of the battlefield one after another, is the strength of the new guy so terrible? Bai Yu couldn't help frowning. The power of destruction circulated on Jin Kunluo, his eyes were gloomy, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Center of the battlefield. GARP, what are you doing? The bald old man holding a long knife had a gloomy expression on his face. What are you doing? Of course you're chasing pirates and doing your duty as a marine. GARP scratched his head and said seriously. Chasing the pirates. Your pursuit is to shoot them, one by one, to hunt them down. The face of the bald old man became more and more gloomy, and a faint black gas permeated the long sword. How do I know that they are so famous, but they are not resistant at all? I just used a little more strength, and it ended up like this. How can I blame me? The big deal is that I will take it lightly next time. GARP twisted the knuckles in his hands and said innocently. The eyes of the vicissitudes of life are full of enthusiasm. From head to toe, he is full of drama, and his acting skills are top-notch. He can compete for the Golden Horse Award. Looking at GARP like this, the bald old man's face turned completely black. Ever since this guy took the initiative, the bald old man felt something was wrong. With this guy's laid-back personality, he didn't even need to call out to act first. What's wrong with what he thinks? Especially after he knocked Luffy into the air, the feeling became more intense, and when he knocked Bai Yu into the air, the bald old man couldn't bear it any longer and broke out directly. Where is this guy chasing after each other? He is clearly shooting the pirates away, creating a distance for them, and taking the opportunity to escape quickly. What? The long knife in his hand slashed out, and the faint cold light stopped directly in front of GARP, blocking him on his way. Is this soon to be seen? GARP, who was blocked from his way, shrank his pupils, and his heart sank when he wanted to, but his face was not empty at all, and he shouted with dissatisfaction. Send. What do you mean? Even if you are 5 elders, you can't be so unreasonable, and actually stop me as a marine from chasing pirates. This is too much. Isn't it normal that you don't have a good grasp of your strength when you are ill? There's no need to fight because of this. In the future, I'll have more control over my strength. GARP tasted his mouth, and the faint blade, Nords, was in front of him, but he didn't even blink his eyelids. He was still chattering, the guy who was too lazy to put 2 farts on weekdays, but now he has turned into a rash. There's no need for next time. The bald old man snorted coldly, just about to say a few words to him, his face suddenly changed. Damn. GARP, are you delaying time and giving them a chance to escape? Ah, what are you talking about? I don't understand why. GARP looked dumbfounded. He wanted to entangle him for a few more words, but the bald-headed old man would not get caught, and gave him a cold look. The figure immediately turned into an afterimage, holding the long knife in his hand, rushing towards the direction Bai Yu left. Hey. GARP let out a faint sigh, finally relaxed his mind, and pulled Zhong down with his fists weak. His stamina had already been exhausted during the battle with Bai Yu, and he was just relying on a pretense to confront the 5 elders. Chapter 234. The reason why you can't escape. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Learn more. If you don't fight with real swords, you're really going to be bald. 5 elders is a fool. Let him and Bai Yu play fake matches for so long, and they move the field and take the opportunity to talk, can't see the slightest abnormality. I can only drag it here for you, and it is up to you whether to live or die. Bai Yu boy, don't let the old man down, you must survive. Take my stupid grandson alive to your future, Roger, I can't think of me. GARP lowered his eyes slowly, no one knew what was on his mind. Chant. An earth-shattering sword sound suddenly appeared in the heaven and earth. Among the sword chants, it seemed as if they were talking about the contention of 2 peerless swordsmen. What? GARP opened his eyes sharply, as if real eyes shot out from them. How could it be possible to catch up so quickly? Although there is not much time to buy, but with the level of Bai Yu's physical skills, it is completely enough for him to run out of the pursuit range. How could it be? GARP frowned, his plans were completely disrupted, and his whole group of thoughts were guarded together in chaos. Lululu. The sound of several sword lights interlacing sounded again, and 2 sword lights collided with one black and one white. 2 figures fell from the sky. In 910, it was Bai Yu, who held Jin Kunluo, and the bald 5 elders, who held a generation of ghosts. You don't run, and you still have the courage to stay. You are indeed Bai Yu, the replicator known as the most evil leader in this generation of supernovas. The bald-headed 5 elders slowly took back the generation of ghosts in their hands. The faint and cold light of the demon knife wrapped around his body, setting off his cold words more like a whisper from the underworld. Cut, run, what am I running? Bai Yu took the Jin Kunluo in his hand and asked for a sword flower. It's not that he doesn't believe GARP's warning that he risked his life for him. Rather, he has a reason for not being able to leave. Captain Idiot, Road Kai Swordsman, Uncle Middle 2, Lustful Chef, Sagittarius. Although this group of guys on board has all kinds of shortcomings. But they are all my partners, and I will never give up my partners and leave alone. Bai Yu spoke slowly, as if answering the doubts in GARP's eyes. Perhaps at the beginning, Bai Yu's purpose was not simple. But as time passed, and experienced more and more things, even he couldn't help himself BCAA sinking into it. The members of the ship are not only the cornerstone of his strength, but also a partner who can entrust his life. Partner. GARP lowered his eyes, as if he had a satisfactory answer, but also as if he had no choice but to face reality. Besides, I haven't fought yet. Where did you get your confidence? You can definitely kill me. It's not my style, Bai Yu, to flee before a fight. Endless banquets, endless wines, endless scenery, and the beauties around you. Want to take these away from him? You have to ask him if the knife in his hand will answer. The corner of Bai Yu's mouth curved, and his confident face burst into endless expressions. The dark power of destruction in his hands bloomed, wrapped in black armed colors, and wrapped around Jin Kunluo calmly. Shura. The activation of exclusive skills can allow him to perfectly integrate dozens of powers in his body. The momentum was like a sea, and it directly overwhelmed the audience, making Fujitora a little breathless. Not to mention those marine soldiers outside the center circle, they all ran as far as they could, and those with strength below the rear admiral level were not even qualified to watch from a distance. Young man, your courage is commendable. However, the tone is too loud. It seems that I haven't shot for a long time, and the world has forgotten the prestige of this demon sword in my hand. The bald five elders slowly raised the long knife in his hand. Show the world your color. The demon sword, scarlet blood, split from the arm, emerged towards the bloodthirsty sword in the hands of the five elders. A faint halo emanated from his crimson blade on the blood-saturated demon blade. Weird scene, like bloodthirsty ghosts in horror movies. Pretend to be a ghost. Bai Yu snorted in disdain. One blade stream, profound truth, 3,000 worlds. A silvery brilliance circulated in the tips of his hair, the long knife in his hand danced wildly, and the afterimage of the knife body became a piece. In the blink of an eye, the pitch-black Jin Kunluo stepped up, not knowing how many knives were cut out. The speed is fast and the number is so large that it is not much weaker than Zoro's 3 swords. Pin pin pin. The sword collided, making a sound like gold and jade, and the water and light entered and disappeared. From the beginning of the sound, it was directly connected into a piece, without a moment's pause. The black light of destruction and the coquettish blood light fight together. In an instant, the two fought for hundreds of rounds. Wow. Zoro did not blink, staring at the figure of the two fighting, looking very seriously, not wanting to miss a single bit. Judging from his eyesight, this can definitely be called the world's highest level kendo duel. Although the two who fought against each other were not necessarily true swordsmen. But the control of the two of them on swordsmanship and strength is definitely the top existence in the world. Even on the Grand Line, it's almost impossible to find a higher specification. Even his duel with Hawkeye at the beginning was a bit inferior only in terms of swordsmanship. Hey, who do you think they can win? Robin reached out to the flower and patted Zoro on the shoulder. Robin, who has limited strength and can't see the truth, can only ask his friends for help if he wants to know the situation of the battle. With this kind of strength around, Enel is deeply in the middle of the second disease, Sanji is addicted to beauty, the captain is a second person, Ace has a normal relationship. Although the green algae head in front of him is also in a daze with a crazy face, but after thinking about it, it is estimated that he is the most reliable. The deputy captain's sword light is incomparable, it is enough to cut off all substances, and the attack cannot be blocked or evaded. That old man's attack is extremely strange and unpredictable, between the visible and the invisible. Zoro didn't turn his head back, and gave his opinions in a gushing endless stream. Quote. I'm asking which of them has a better chance of winning. Robin was at a loss, and held on until the end, not understanding who had the upper hand. Robin finally found out that it was a mistake to ask Zoro. Ask a guy who was crazy about this sword and expect to get any reliable answers. I really should have asked Zoro. Robin helped his forehead helplessly, and just wanted to use the power of flower fruit to ask Ace for the result. The entangled black and red light in the field suddenly changed. In the collision of pitch black and scarlet, a dazzling brilliance erupted. Just like the singularity of the Big Bang, it sends out powerful kinetic energy. Taking the place where the two fought as the original heart, they charged away in all directions. Chapter 235. A lamp destined to be extinguished. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Several warships that were close to each other were originally in the hands of the two, and were bombarded by the aftermath. The shock wave of terror was the straw that broke the camel's back. They smashed the battered into pieces of sawdust. Boom boom boom. The strong wind pressure carried the sawdust and scatters it in all directions, blowing to and fro. Don't worry about anything. Bai Yu. After forcibly using flower fruit to stabilize his body, Robin quickly looked in Bai Yu's direction. The clothes were infected by sword energy and became fragmented. There are several small openings on the arm, which should have been cut by the wind blade and have begun to heal. There is a mark on the right arm that has been scratched by a sharp weapon, but before the clothes, there is no blood spillage. His handsome face still had that familiar look on his face. As if feeling Robin's gaze, he turned his head and gave her a reassuring look. It's okay. That's great, Robin exclaimed in surprise. Before she could have a good time, the bald-headed five elders' words rang out on the field again. Strength. Sure enough. No wonder you dare to be so arrogant, but if you take this as your reckless reliance, it would be too naive. Dark red blood trickled out from his right arm and rushed towards the bloodthirsty demon sword. On the bare chest of the kimono, Bai Yu's Jin Kunluo cut a scar deep into the bone, and the residual force of destruction covered the wound. He blocked all means of treatment, so that the wound could not even heal, and could only continue to seep blood outward, and the pure white kimono had been dyed blood red. Every action will lead to the tearing of the wound on the chest. If it were an ordinary person, even if he did not lose too much blood and fainted, he would have to be involved in the wound, and he would not be able to move. The bald old man in front of him was still able to act normally. Except for the pale complexion, the rest of the world is as good as ordinary people, and it is the top level of the world government, the five elders. Laugh. The strength is not very good, but the tone is not small. Bai Yu sneered, his face full of disdain. I really think he's scared. Just a harsh word can make him panic. Just kidding. After so many rounds of fighting, Bai Yu has also roughly figured out the opponent's strength. In terms of hard power, this bald head is 1 or 2 grades stronger than Sengoku and GARP. It was purely by relying on the demon saber in his hand and his lifeless style of play, that he could barely keep up with his footsteps. Even so, the fight is just a little bit stronger than the normal self, Lu. After opening Shura, you can directly press him to fight. If it weren't for the generation of ghosts in his hands, and his resilience, he would have been defeated by himself. It's a pity that the power of destruction in the body was poured into Jin Kunluo to eat it, otherwise it wouldn't be so troublesome. After the destructive power in his body was slowed down, he suppressed his resilience and survived for 180 rounds. Bai Yu had the confidence to cut the old man to the sword. It's mainly a generation of ghosts in the opponent's hands. As expected, it is worthy of the name of the demon sword. It is between the virtual and the real, and the attack is so strange that even Bai Yu almost got hit and nearly cut off his right arm. If you give you more time to grow up, maybe you will one day. The bald-headed five elders looked deeply in Bai Yu's direction, hiding deep fear under the round-bottomed glasses. At a young age, his strength is so terrifying, his swordsmanship is not weaker than himself, and even surpassed. The Grandmaster has various abilities, no shortcoming, and even controls a strange energy that can prevent the healing effect of the fruit in his body. This is definitely a scarier guy than Roger back then. Plus his companions. The bald five elders had an inexplicable shuddering feeling. Good luck. Unfortunately. You have no chance. As the lamp cover, destined to be extinguished in history, you should be honored. The bald-headed five elders grinned with a nasty expression. Turn off the lights. You are a blind date show, and you can turn off the lights if you don't like it. Bai Yu's face was speechless, the spirit of spit in his body was burning, and there were too many spit points, and he didn't know where to start vomiting. This is the decision of the God the Creator, you should follow it, and you must follow it. The bald-headed five elders' face turned cold, and the generation ghost, in his hands suddenly plunged to the ground, his hands raised as if embracing nature. Why, I even lost my weapon, did I give up my struggle? Bai Yu raised his eyebrows with a sense of déjà vu. For flowers oh. After all, are you going to get to this point, it's all over. GARP lowered his eyes and looked ashes. Sure enough, it's like this again. The fate that can't be escaped. Sengoku frowned, and his face was solemn. Could it be that thing? Green Bull's face changed slightly, as if he had thought of something. He glanced at Fujitora, and received a certain look from him. I can finally be innocent, but why does it always feel that it is not so simple? Kizaru used his head, and he was probably tortured by that guy. Despicable. Pirates. Meet the judgment of the Creator. The bald-headed five elders' eyes were furious, staring like 2 huge copper bells, with blood splattering in their eyes, making people worried that his eyes would explode like this. 0. Uranus is Uranus, show your majesty to mortals. His hands were flat and raised, and an indescribable aura emerged from him, like a deep sea like a sea. In an instant, the aura of Bai Yu was directly suppressed. What's the situation? Bai Yu frowned, his expression solemn, his heart sank slightly. This is definitely not his aura. There are traces of another person's power in him. There is a subtle similarity to the scene where the CP chief starts number 0. But the aura that emerged from his body was more than 100 times stronger. It was simply the difference between clouds and mud. Before Bai Yu could come up with a reason, the situation on the field suddenly changed. A strange set of instruments appeared in the air out of thin air. Several light spheres of different colors slowly rotate, surrounding a huge sphere together, running on their own unique orbits without interfering with each other. What's this? The 6 different spheres revolved around the big ball in the center and went around, but they did not rotate at will, and seemed to have their own laws. The melon eaters who didn't know the truth looked at the spheres that were suspended in the air and slowly revolved according to their respective orbits. Bai Yu's face was a little weird, the star model. He could have some clues. From the appearance alone, the thing that the bald-headed five elders tinkered with was at least 90% similar to the star model he saw in the astronomical exhibition in his previous life. 0. Chapter 236. Crossed again. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. To be honest, didn't the moon in the previous life revolve around the earth like this? From the diagram, it is exactly the same. If it is dead, it will be 5 more. The world has been replaced by one, so wouldn't it be very scientific if there were 5 more stars? Fall. Science is a hammer. In a world of high martial arts and high magic, what kind of trouble is it to make such a scientific star model? Bai Yu looked at the sky, the models, that were moving fast according to their respective orbits, but never intersected, feeling that he was about to split. Did I accidentally cross over again? Bai Yu fell into deep self-doubt, and finally realized the feeling of the opponent's 3 views collapsed. Why is this thing here? Just when Bai Yu doubted his life, Robin's exclamation suddenly sounded on the field. This is a map drawn by Ohara scholars. It turns out that 910 is all true, all true. Robin's surprised and happy voice sounded on the field, attracting everyone's attention. Robin, you know this thing. What the hell is this? Luffy asked curiously. I know, of course I know. On Ohara, the great scholars are discussing these astronomical things every day. The largest sphere in the middle is the Earth under our feet, and the surrounding stars are the moon. Dr. Clover said that they have the power to control the tides. Quote. Robin said a lot with tears and tears. Through the strange model in the sky, she seemed to see Dr. Clover smiling and cheering at her. Regardless of the past history, it was created by human beings and must be accepted by all. As long as we face it bravely, we can deal with anything. PhD. At this moment, Robin was crying like a tearful man. Ah, the Earth under our feet is a sphere. Wouldn't the water in the sea be sprinkled? Luffy's jaw dropped in shock. Robin-san, I'm not questioning, but if our feet are really a sphere, wouldn't it fall when we go to the opposite side? Sanji frowned, and the idiot's face became puzzled. Huh, in this case, if I get lost and I keep walking in one direction, won't I be able to walk back sooner or later? A certain road Kaijanao seemed to have thought of some good idea, and couldn't help but high-five happily. I mean it. This is a map drawn by Ohara University scholars. There is absolutely nothing wrong, even Dr. Clover is right. As a master of history, Robin can only be numb when encountering astronomical problems that are not right. While sticking to my own point of view, I secretly hate myself for being careless and not learning more knowledge when I was a child. If it is spherical, it is somewhat possible. When I was on Sky Island before, I used to explore upwards out of curiosity. Although I didn't reach the highest point, after rising to a certain height, it really didn't look like a plane when I looked at the surface. Enel's low voice rang in everyone's ears. The calm Versailles is indeed the second Thor on the ship. Is the world under our feet really spherical? Ace couldn't help stomping his feet, still a little surprised. Although Enel has said this, it is really difficult for people to accept in a short period of time that the inherent 3 views have been subverted for a long time. It's a pity that Nami, the navigator on the bed, fainted, otherwise she might have given Robin a little more support. Robin, that's right, the Earth under our feet should indeed be a sphere. No, do you see the blue spots on the sphere? Those represent the sea under our feet. The stunned Bai Yu finally regained his senses and opened his mouth. After Robin spoke, he suddenly remembered that there seemed to be a scene in the comics, and there seemed to be a similar map in Ohara's collection. Fortunately, with the improvement of his strength, Bai Yu accidentally awakened his ability to remember, and barely remembered the scene he had seen in his mind. Bai Yu, who finally got rid of the doubts, finally breathed a sigh of relief and had time to focus. Wow, it turns out that Robin is telling the truth. Bai Yu is indeed Bai Yu, and he won the unanimous trust of his friends as soon as he opened his mouth. If the blue spot is the sea, isn't this strange raised spot the sacred place of the celestial dragons, Mariajoy? Jinbei pointed to a prominent place on the sphere and said in surprise. Mariajoy, isn't this place the calm belt? Go down, this is East Blue, right? Zoro, that's our hometown. Luffy grabbed him and turned into a green algae head with mosquito coil eyes, his face full of excitement. East Blue, West Blue, Grand Line found. Alabasta, Vivi, your hometown is here. By the way, where is your hometown, Chopper? Why didn't I see you looking for? Jinbei, look at that place, isn't it the Fishman Island? It looks like it's shaped. The direction of the incident was like stepping on a banana peel, driving in a strange direction under Luffy's crooked stairs. Seeing a final battle to the death, it is about to develop into the One Piece version of Little Tadpoles Find Mom, or a map battle in the science lecture hall. The sudden change in the style of painting made Bai Yu helplessly raise his forehead. Why don't you say it? 5 elders are 5 elders. People can sit on such a high position, in the end they still have 2 brushes, at least the chi-raising skills are definitely first class. The total length of the CP before the drive is used, and there are still leftovers for the 8 streets to turn. To this extent, it was completely ignored. If it were put on the head of the CP, I am afraid that he would have been furious and start to become angry. Now the bald-headed 5 elders, people are stunned to hold back, not showing any anger or saying anything, mouth Kakuzu still smiling. It seems that you accept things quite quickly. Bald-headed 5 elders, a generation of ghosts hanging on their hands 0.0 feet as a crutch, used to support the body. Bai Yu frowned slightly. I always feel that this guy is smiling very fakely, and he can't help but want to rush up to give him 2 punches, and the smile in his eyes seems to be mixed with a hint of superiority. That familiar look, it always feels like, usually in the zoo, when I see chimpanzees using tools as a surprise. Unfortunately, no matter what, it can't change your fate of extinguishing the lights in history. The bald five elders sighed and squeezed two crocodile tears from the corners of his eyes. The cat's cry and the mouse's false sense of compassion is very strong. It's just a celestial model. Don't take it out to scare people, many of the Ohara scholars know about this thing. Who are you going to use this to scare people? Using the flower fruit as the horn, Robin's voice played on a loop. Chapter 237. Earth System, Tidal Force. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. After covering up the tears, Robin's bright eyes flashed a hint of slyness. As a smart woman, she certainly wouldn't be so stupid. She really felt that the dignified five elders would come up with an appearance-less model to fool them. Robin said this purely as a tactic, trying to get the other party to give more useful information and help Bayu as much as possible. In terms of strength, she is far behind. She doesn't even have the qualifications to intervene, so she can only use this inconspicuous little means to help off the field. So it's you, Ohara's only survivor, son of the devil, Robin. The bald-headed five elders raised his non-existent eyebrows and looked at him with cold eyes. No wonder Straw Hat Crew, so easy to accept the reality of the world, I almost forgot you. Humph. So what if it's me? You are just tricks to fool people, and they are nothing more than astronomical models. Robin held the other's eyes full of murderous intent. Strictly suppressing the fear in his heart, he gritted his teeth and opened his mouth, continuing to stimulate. Model. That's just his appearance. How can an ignorant mortal like you see the truth of the world? 12. Aren't you looking for the historical text, looking for the three major ancient weapons? Poseidon. Poseidon is able to summon all the sea kings. Pluto has the power to destroy an island with one shot. Aren't you curious about the power of the most mysterious, Uranus? The bald-headed five elders looked at Robin wickedly. How could Robin's little thought escape his eyes? He just believes that under absolute power, all intrigues and tricks are paper tigers. Uranus. What? Robin's heart sank, as if he had fallen into a deep valley, with a very bad feeling. The power of manipulating natural disasters, you have seen it. That is from Uranus, re-engraved, but compared to his real power, it is childish. The bald five elders had a nasty smile. The first generation in his hand was full of ghosts, and after eating so many times, he finally became proud again. Children's stuff. It's a lie. How can that kind of terrifying power be? Jinbei couldn't help swallowing. Although he is the chief of CP who controls number 0, he behaves like a fool in all aspects, and is 90% similar to his master celestial dragons. But the power he showed was not at all false. Spitting lava, tyrannical thunder, terrifying lightning, raging hurricane. Each of them has the power of Marine Admiral, which is not inferior to the top Admiral shots. It also has the ability to wirelessly reset and refresh. This means that the opponent is Bai Yu. If it is replaced by Ace, Luffy, and Enel will go up. It is hard to say how the outcome will be won, but at least it cannot be determined in a short period of time. This kind of terrifying power is actually said to be a child's toy. Let's talk big. Jinbei's fierce face couldn't help showing a strong fear. Mortal knowledge. The bald five elders glanced dismissively. Uranus. The power of Uranus, but manipulating natural disasters. This is the legacy of the creator, and it is also the most holy and supreme power. A frenzied voice came from him. Released the right hand of first-generation Gito, raised it slightly, and made a virtual point towards the astronomical model in the air. As if responding to his actions. Among the 6 planets revolving around the central star body and rapidly rotating along their respective orbits, one suddenly burst into a dazzling light. As descendants of the creator, leaders of the celestial dragons, we each hold Uranus's, a part of Uranus, a power that mortals could never imagine. The ghost of first generation swung forward brazenly, and the shining planet burst forth, rushing forward suddenly, deviating from his original orbit. On the central sphere, representing the position of the ocean, suddenly surged, as if someone was holding an invisible giant stick, stirring the sea, causing endless chaos. Uzumaki. The skyrocketing sea water engulfed a large amount of land in an instant, and the star body that was originally blue, Wang Yang's country changed more. We control the position and movement of the moon, manipulate the tidal forces of floods and tsunamis, and simulate the movement of all natural disasters. This is the real Uranus. The powerful base of the bald five elders made the curtain call for this popular science. Uranus represents the moon. Tianlong, can people simulate natural disasters and freely manipulate the power of ocean tides? Not only are there 6 moons in the sky, but they can also be influenced by humans. Does the city that was submerged in the capital of the 7 waters, the rumored ancient kingdom, really exist? All of a sudden, Straw Hat Crew was stunned when they heard this shocking revelation. The moon and the tsunami that are accustomed to, can actually be affected by human manipulation. Even the changes of the continental plates, the formation of the 4 seas, the special purpose of the red line, the divided world. It is very likely that the other party created it. This kind of moving mountains and reclaiming seas is comparable to the mighty power of myths, and it is simply beyond the imagination of human beings. The nervous Luffy was stunned. Judging by the ability of this guy's demonstration, couldn't he just drown his hometown? Can this kind of enemy really be resisted? The shocking 910 was caught off guard, and even Marine was in an uproar. The middle and lower level soldiers all heard their worldview shattered. Even Green Bull couldn't help but glanced at Fujitora. We are so hard backstage. Why didn't you tell me? I almost couldn't resist the provocation. Fujitora rolled her eyes and turned her head away, ignoring this guy. On the other hand, Garp and Sengoku, these two retired old fellows, looked unsurprised, as if they had known it for a long time, maybe even seen it with their own eyes. Under the power of God, wake up. Now grab your hands and put on seastone handcuffs. I can take you to the Ennie's lobby and let you accept the punishment of the law. This is your last way of life. The bald-headed five elders held the first-generation ghost in his arms, stopping the bleeding from his arms. He radiates his power freely all around. Manipulate natural disasters and control the power of the moon to hang high in the sky. Under the terrifying pressure, the air pressure became abnormally low, and the warriors defending the coastline had long been frightened, and they had no fighting spirit at all, and they were about to lie down and die. Even the Straw Hat crew's fighting spirit was unstoppably low. Luffy was just a rough guy, didn't feel any pressure, and was still fighting high. What about the natural disaster? What about the moon? I want to become the man of the One Piece. I won't just grab it. Have the ability to defeat me. Luffy shouted with a rubber fist. Chapter 238. Ihong everywhere and rescue. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. You must be lying. If you really have the ability to submerge the island, you would have already started it. How could you still be talking so much nonsense with us here? As if inspired by Luffy's fighting spirit, Robin also ignited faith. Flower fruit blooms everywhere, conveying her voice and inspiring the fighting spirit of her companions. Ignorant human beings, don't take my mercy as your unscrupulous capital. There was a sharp look in the eyes of the bald five elders. Of course what he said was true, otherwise he would have no confidence and dared to come face Bai Yu alone. He still understands the truth of the son of 1,000 gold not being a daddy. But, he did miss a point. If you want to use a powerful force far beyond your ability, the price you must pay is also huge. Otherwise, according to the character of celestial dragons, it would have already been pointed out where to fight. Where is the turn to get the revolutionary army, the dragon, so arrogant in the white earth world? Want to drive Uranus? Uranus, the price you want to pay is life. Although he was the five elders, he had already obtained eternal life through op fruit, but the price that drove him to pay was no small amount. Otherwise, where did the whitebeards on his companions come from? Originally, I wanted to use momentum and intimidation to achieve the effect of defeating the enemy without fighting, and try to solve the Straw Hat crew without using this big killer. Seeing that the plan was about to succeed, a roadblock suddenly appeared, and the bald five elders' lungs were about to explode. Just as he was about to open his mouth to say something, Robin spoke first. Hey, stop talking nonsense, and feel guilty. Don't fall for this guy's tricks, get ready to take action and solve this guy together. Robin's voice came from all directions. Ships, sea water, sails. The flowers growing everywhere have become an excellent sound transmission tube for her. The extended effect of flower fruit was used by her in Ultimate as a publicity tool, which boosted morale on the field. Damn. The bald-headed five elders glanced at Robin with incomparable resentment. The vicious eyes, like a lion majesty lurking in the dark, stared at people with pain in the back. Now, it is impossible to capture all the Straw Hat crew and fulfill Lord Yim's order without paying any price. Looking at the Straw Hat crew, the stance is just around the corner, especially the leading ones. The rebellious hip-hop man has already started to drive thunder and lightning. The guy with Roger's sin flowing, his fists are already on fire. Another guy with thick nerves, has already transpired with a scarlet blood dragon. And the rest of the dick beside them. He knew he couldn't wait any longer. Otherwise, things will really only go towards the situation that you least want to see. Want to do it? Then come and feel for yourself, your weakness. The bald-headed five elders flashed a trace of ruthlessness in their eyes, and in their hands, first generation swung forward. The speed at which he raised his knife and slashed was very slow, as if he was pulling something terrifying down. Boom. A silent loud noise came from overhead, resounding in the hearts of everyone on the battlefield, as if there was some great will, and they looked at him. What it is. The huge movement caused everyone to stop and turn their eyes to the sky. I saw a clear sky. Suddenly, an extremely bright star appeared, shining brightly in the sky. Its dazzling light, for a time, actually suppressed the brilliance of the sun overhead. A star appeared. Are those real? Is it too late to run now? Rumbling. Just as everyone looked up at the sky, the hull beneath them suddenly shook violently. On the calm seabed, a large amount of waves suddenly appeared, and many fish jumped and rushed onto the boat. The waves, what a big wave. How could there be such a high wave without a hurricane? No, the boat is about to capsize, jump off the boat to escape. Help, I'm a capable person, I can't touch the sea, come and save me. Sure, there are big waves on the shore, run. This kind of attack can't be defended at all. The wind and clouds rise from the flat ground, and the sea of suffering creates waves. The silent sea suddenly tumbled violently as if it had eaten a bad stomach. A large number of Uzumaki suddenly emerged from the sea. The terrifying undercurrent engulfed several warships in an instant. The hundreds of meters of frigates, together with the thousands of marine soldiers on board, were directly submerged in the Uzumaki, and not even a bubble appeared. The waves hundreds of meters high were even more terrifying. When a wave crashed over, the ship was directly hit with many holes. Even the main ship could not guarantee the safety of the overturned water. Many marine soldiers on the ship abandoned their ships and jumped into the sea after they failed to save the ship. No matter how difficult the sea was, after all, there were still warships as support, and those warriors defending the coastline were really miserable. Hundreds of meters high waves came, overwhelming the sky, and instantly engulfed the fortifications on the reef, and there was no pause in the terrifying distances one after another. A wave of a game hits. In the blink of an eye, the rocky reef beach was engulfed in the endless ocean. Island began to be submerged by the sea. The ruthless waves do not distinguish between enemy and me at all. In the blink of an eye, I don't know how many fresh lives were swallowed. Save me. I don't want to die. Marshal Sengoku, Marshal Aokiji, help. I can't swim. The sound of crying and screaming sounded on the sea. In just a short while, Marines' casualties were more than 10 times more than those who died in the battle with Straw Hat crew. Kizaru, let's do it together. Nords, I used gravity to float the boat and the injured, and you and the green cow quickly placed your hands on the boat. Seeing and hearing the tragic scene of grief everywhere, Fujitora couldn't sit still any longer. Even if it is the fruit ability in the body, there is not much left, and it still can't stop him from thinking about shooting. Pick up. Now but. Huang Sir looked at Kamui's bald head, 5 elders, with a hesitant expression, just about to say something to Fujitora. As a result, he met the gully face of this guy. He was clearly an old blind man with his eyes closed, but Huang Sir's stunned feeling, a sharp-edged gaze, came out from his eyes and penetrated his heart. We are Marine Admiral. Don't forget the cape behind you. Fujitora clutched the purple bathrobe tightly, and the word, justice, on the cloak rattled in the wind. Kizaru laughed dumbly, and a strange color unexpectedly bloomed on his always wretched face. Chapter 239. The Person Who Speaks. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. With a flash of golden light, his slender figure disappeared directly in place. Only one sentence of unclear meaning was left. I'm just an office worker who works hard to punch in. Don't put so much pressure on me, okay? Fujitora and Green Bull looked at each other and smiled, finally letting the slippery loach take a stand. Kizaru has mobilized the power of the Fruit Awakening to rescue, let's hurry up. Good. A smile flashed across Green Bull's handsome face, and after nodding, armament hockey wrapped around him, followed by a flash, and disappeared on the boat. Weightless control. Terrifying power spreads from Fujitora, frantically extracting the ability of gravity fruit. Ka. Losing the influence of gravity, in a weightless environment, many warships and soldiers submerged by seawater emerged one after another from the sea. No matter how bad it was, he tried his best to hug Kanban by his side, taking a deep breath and waiting for the next rescue. Hey. The light track of the 8-foot mirror diffused on the sea surface, and directly covered the entire battlefield. Kizaru, who turned into light, shuttled through the mirror like this, following Fujitora's guidance, constantly rescuing the soldiers who came out of the sea. The monkey spirit who stole rape and wants to slip is just an old scalper who has been working hard. Not to be outdone, the green cow turned into an afterimage, and the light green wind surrounded him with 910, and the speed was extremely fast. I saw one after another light green figure, constantly shuttled on the sea, rescued the Marines who were struggling in the water, but no one really saw his movements. Compared with the yellow sir that turned into a photon shuttle, the speed of the green bull is not necessarily slow. It's finally over. Huang Sir, who had done 10 years of exercise in one day, slumped on the seat with Erlang's legs crossed. After Marine and Admiral worked together, they managed to get the situation under control. Fujitora managed to hold on, emptying a main ship afloat and carrying the wounded on it. Transport to areas as far away from wind and wave erosion as possible. Things finally came to an end, and the exhaustion turned into a photon. Kizaru, who looked like he was played badly, looked at the 5 elders without a trace. On the expressionless face, there is neither the guilt of accidentally killing Marine, nor the gratification that the 3 of Kizaru tried their best to rescue and save the situation. Only endless indifference, aloof indifference. Celestial dragons, 5 elders, what a terrible guy. Huang Sir, in his heart, complained inexplicably, and his face was indifferent between joy and anger. What? The Emperor Fujitora, who was desperately holding the main ship afloat, away from the erosion of the wind and waves, suddenly changed his face. Has the storm stopped? Is it finally over? Fujitora looked at the sea in surprise. Although there are still waves, it is many times better than the previous appearance of overturning the river and the sea. At least the warship is inside, and there will be absolutely nothing wrong. Humph. The bald-headed 5 elders snorted coldly, and slowly retracted the first-generation ghosts in their hands. Shock and awe, it's barely enough here. It wasn't because Fujitora couldn't hold it, he didn't have the spare time to take care of those insignificant trash fish. Purely, pushing Uranus to keep running would have a serious impact on his lifespan. In less than a quarter of an hour, 3 eyebrows fell off. These are the 3 eyebrows on the scale of his eternal life. A full 3, used to exchange the lives of a bunch of trash, it is blood loss. Now, is it enough to realize your weakness and powerlessness? Full of bald heads 5 elders. His eyes were full of indifference and a sense of superiority. Damn it. Robin clenched her silver teeth tightly, and the tsunami-like attack destroyed all the fantasies in her heart. She couldn't help but think of O'Hara, who was roaring with artillery fire that day. Is it true that you will never be able to resist, Doctor? Tears fell one by one from Robin's eyes full of water, like pearls with a broken thread, and fell to his knees weakly, nails slamming into his flesh. Blood seeped from her fingertips, but she didn't seem to notice a trace of pain. It's not. I want. BCAA. The man who becomes the Pirate King. Absolutely, absolutely impossible to give up. Luffy's indomitable will drives him to cry out his dreams. But, the process seems a little weird. The man who aspires to be the Pirate King. It was unexpectedly discovered that, as a rubber man, he actually had a loophole that would cause seasickness after eating. The overturned sea caused the sunshine miles to vibrate violently. With his rubber physique, of course he wouldn't care about this bump. 1. He fills the belly of things, but he doesn't have the ability. The outside was shaking, and the inside was overturned. It didn't take long for Luffy to hold on to the wall and vomit. After finally recovering, the red steam that appeared on the surface of the body had long since dissipated, and the long dragon whose chi and blood had turned into disappeared long ago. With a disheartened face, he became exhausted even shouting slogans. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't look like you can continue fighting. Humph. Let's face it, pathetic mortal. Now, surrender, my previous promise is still valid. As long as you are willing to put on seastone handcuffs and go to the Ennie's lobby to stand trial, I am willing to let you live. Anyway, it is an expedient measure. Rather than let him lose his life, it is better to have his reputation tarnished. Anyway, as long as those who know it dare not say it, it is equivalent to not happening. It's not the first time that they have done things like smearing history and covering up the past. Otherwise, not only you, but even this entire continent will be destroyed. Going against the will of the Creator can only be drowned in history. The bald-headed 5 elders had a ruthless face, and Wano Kuni's future was directly used as a bargaining chip. When you talk about submerging a continent, your eyes don't fluctuate at all, just like a child trying to divert water into an ant's hole. In the end, the corner of his mouth opened towards Robin badly, like the original O'Hara, he was completely submerged in history, but this time, no more demon children will escape. This woman who ruined her good things and caused him to lose in vain, the woman with 3 eyebrows, he has long remembered hatred, and now he will charge some interest. After she fell into her hands completely, bald-headed 5 elders, his face turned hideous involuntarily. Robin suddenly felt a chill rise up his spine. Is it? Can we just keep repeating the same mistakes? Thick despair covered her, suppressing all thoughts. What? A chuckle sounded on the field. Who? The bald-headed 5 elders have cold eyebrows. At this time, there are still people who dare to sing against him. Chapter 240. 10 Years of Aging. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Hee hee. Cheerful laughter sounded on the field, which seemed out of tune with the low-pressure atmosphere. Although the sound is not loud. But the one who was present was not a master with sharp ears and a very high level of physical development. It caught their attention right away. They turned their eyes away and looked towards the place where the laughter sounded. It's actually you. The bald 5 elders looked gloomily at Bai Yu in front of him. The imposing aura that was like a sea of abyss on his body was overwhelmingly suppressed. The strange smile on this guy's face made him feel a bad feeling in his heart. It's me, what's wrong? Bai Yu flicked Jin Kunluo on his hand with a look of indifference. He didn't take the threat of the bald 5 elders seriously. It's like a breeze, and it's freehand. Now this time, you can still laugh, you really don't know how to live or die. The bald-headed 5 elders snorted coldly, and the look in his eyes became colder. Why can't you laugh? Who made your words so funny? I can't help it, you don't really think that you're going to eat us, do you? Ha ha ha. Bai Yu pouted, and laughed outright without anyone else. He didn't take the bald-headed 5 elders, whose face was sinking like water, as one thing at all. What? You really don't cry without seeing the coffin? Since you have repeatedly failed my good intentions, then give me all to die. The bald 5 elders' eyes flashed fiercely. The nameless gravitational force emanated from his body, pulling him to the sky, and the first-generation Goosh, who was clenched in his right hand, swung forward vigorously. Like a god judging all beings. The calm sea suddenly turned upside down again. The tsunami and undercurrent that were even more ferocious than before appeared on the sea surface again. Since simple threats have no effect, let them feel the pain brought by natural disasters. The bald-headed 5 elders, whose eyes are full of vicious colors, completely motivated Uranus's power, and decided to kill him first and bleed into a river. The huge waves set off by the sea covered the sky, even the sun, all kinds of wind and thunder, lightning and thunder, a scene of doomsday. Depend on. Fujitora, who finally took a breath, couldn't help but cursed. Gritting his teeth, he urged the fruit of gravity to cut off the huge waves, and desperately lifted the main ship carrying the wounded to the sky. Drops of sweat dripped from his ravaged face, but he still gritted his teeth, closed his eyes tightly, and struggled to support him, showing no sign of giving up. Meow sigh. Life is not easy. Could it be that the result is always doomed? No matter how hard you try, you still can't change it. Is this my destiny? Robin rubbed his fists tightly, and the falling tears had long since formed a line. Through the apocalyptic scene in front of her, she seemed to see Ohara again under the Buster Call, covered by artillery fire and razed to the ground, and the friendly scholars were mercilessly killed. The books they regarded as treasures were all buried in the flames, and their relatives, aunts and uncles on the island were swallowed up by the sea of fire one by one. The endless despair pulled her into the abyss. At the same time as she fell endlessly, there was also the arrival of the ultimate cold current. The cold feeling rose from the bottom of her heart, as if she would be completely frozen into ice cubes. Just when she was completely wrapped in despair and immersed in the erosion of cold. A pair of warm big hands suddenly covered her shoulders, pulling her back to reality. Okay. Robin raised his head sharply and met Bai Yu with a gentle gaze. Don't worry, I have everything. In the plain words, there is a convincing force. Bai Yu. Robin's big watery eyes were filled with tears, and in the sad despair, because of Bai Yu's words, an endless expression suddenly lit up. The brilliance of hope flashed above her eyes. The burning trust in his eyes warmed Bai Yu's heart. Just wait here for a while. Bai Yu unconsciously touched the girl's head, and the softness between the ends of her hair made him happy. He's not talking big. The power displayed by the bald five elders was indeed far beyond his expectations. Move mountains and reclaim seas at every turn, destroying the sky and destroying the earth, dividing the world. Uranus, the power of manipulating natural disasters and driving the moon, is far beyond imagination. Even if the strongest auxiliary system gave Bai Yu the ability to replicate the power of the crew, coupled with the newly controlled power of destruction, it was still only a weak state after all. In the new world, it can be said that it is difficult to find an opponent, but in the end it still belongs to the category of human beings. Compared with this kind of natural disaster-like power, it is really dwarfed. Ask for flowers oh. In the fantasy world, it is really too buggy to build a technology-side Earth-Moon system. But no one said, Uranus, only the five elders can use it. There was a bright light in Bai Yu's eyes. Do you really think Bai Yu, who just stood without a word, was watching a play in a daze? He has been trying to use the strange power contained in Jin Kunluo to control the so-called Sixth Order. No wonder Marine has been obsessed with this knife in his hand and has been struggling. It turned out that he was not only one of the supreme swordsmen, but also related to Uranus. Marine is actually chasing Uranus, it seems that they are not pure. Point 0. Bai Yu's eyes darkened, as if he had thought of something interesting. But, whatever their calculations, it's mine now. Instead of talking nonsense here, it's better to see the real chapter under your hand. Let me see how far you can do it. In his hand, Jin Kunluo pointed forward. Bai Yu was full of confidence. Damn it, a mortal who doesn't know how to live or die. The bald-headed five elders sank like water, and none of the last threats took effect. After spending a lot of time, I didn't expect to get to this point. Use life to drive, Uranus. Damn, that's 10 years of aging. With op fruit, you get infinite lifespan, but that doesn't mean you won't die. Every time they run the power of Uranus, even if they have eternal life, they will still age uncontrollably for 10 years, when the body is completely eroded by aging. An irreversible death will be upon them. 10 years. Bald-headed five elders, the heartache is like bleeding. With eternal life, he is of course reluctant to pay such a high price, but when he thinks of the price of violating that existence. Lord I am. Even ignoring Marine's deaths and injuries, there was no wavering in his eyes. Fearless through the scars on his body, he feeds the blood to the first-generation ghost, to devour. As if there was no trace of emotion, the bald-headed five elders, who existed with the concept of pain, couldn't help but shudder deeply. 0. Chapter 241. Fujitora vomiting blood. No, this guy must die. No matter how much you pay, you must never disobey the orders of Lord I am. The bald-headed five elders' eyes were full of viciousness, and they couldn't care less about their eroded lifespan. Gritting his teeth, he struggled to mobilize Uranus's power. It is no longer the same petty mess as before, but completely brought his mighty power to the world. Natural disaster. It's coming. Boom. The incomparably huge stars bloomed brightly in the daytime. The star-like superstar is constantly magnifying in the eyes of everyone. The stars in the sky are about to fall. Help. Ah, the war at sea is not over yet. Is the sky about to split again? Woo, I don't want to die yet. Fujitora Admiral, help. The stars hanging high in the sky, 910, began to slowly fall downwards, and everyone present was heartbroken. Whether they are bold or timid, they have all lost their motivation to resist. This is not a meteorite, but the real moon in the sky. Far more than the area of the mainland, it fell from the sky, and the coverage is probably enough to wipe out the entire East Blue and evaporate, let alone resist it, even escaping. No matter the marine soldiers on the warship or the guard warriors of Wano Kuni, they all fell to the ground with no fighting spirit, all with their eyes closed and waiting to die. Only, the ship that was rescued by Fujitora and held up in the sky, the surviving marine still had a little hope in his eyes. They shouted Fujitora's name, hoping that he could shoot again. Fujitora Admiral's fruit ability is to control gravity. Since he can lift the ship, then he can lift the falling moon to the sky again. The surviving marine soldiers all thought so. Question mark question mark question mark. Fujitora was full of question marks. What I mean is the gravity fruit, not the moon fruit. Even in its heyday, trying to pull off a few meteorites would be exhausting. Now when the power of this fruit is about to run out of ammunition and food, you ask me to support the moon. If I really have strength, I still need to be an admiral here. Kong was expelled from power a long time ago, and he took up the post of chief division of the world government. According to his own will, he transformed the world government into his own shape. Feeling those earnest eyes on her body, Fujitora felt no relief in her heart. Just a kind of urge to vomit blood because of exhaustion. Destroy, hurry, tired. Fujitora tightened the purple bathrobe on her body, and had the thought of letting go, and was just about to move in her heart. No, it's not the moon falling. The consequences of the moon falling are not something they can afford. He is influencing the tidal forces in the sea by controlling the orbit of the moon. From the loudspeakers that filled the battlefield with flower fruit, Robin shouted. As the only survivor of the Ohara incident in the world. Although she is only a historian, not an astronomer, the knowledge she has heard since childhood has allowed her to discover some clues in the sky. Quickly and desperately, the information that was detected was told to the companions on the ship. Humph. What if it's not the moon falling, but the tidal force? This is the power of nature, an irreversible natural disaster. The ocean driven by tides is enough to drown all matter in the world. No matter how powerful it is, or how ancient a country is, under the power of the ocean, it will be as small as dust. The bald five elders snorted coldly. Even after being exposed by Robin, the indifferent expression on his face remained unchanged. When he fully motivated Uranus, then everything was a foregone conclusion. Although the price is extremely heavy, the effect is undeniably powerful. You forced me to die today. As a lamp destined to go out in history, this is your burial place. The bald-headed five elders floated in the air, holding first-generation Ghost's right hand, and dropped slightly. There is only a high indifference on his face, and his cold pupils stare at the bottom. Just like the god who caused the great flood to destroy the world, he is ruthless and cold and does whatever he wants. The waves raged under his watch, and the waves raged beneath his feet. The tidal force originating from the moon is far from something that can be resisted by human beings. It engulfed half of the coastline in an instant. The wildly rising sea water still has no limit to stop. A pair of Wanokuni, completely swallowed up, and vowed not to give up. Oops, crappy. I'm going to die. I suddenly have a disease that will kill me when I touch the sea. Franky, let's go and drive the Sunshine Miles. Holding the black coffin from the shoreline, Usopp pulled up the boatman next to him tearfully. Run. In this situation, Wanokuni is about to be submerged. If you don't run, it will be too late. What are you hesitating about? Usopp's snot and tears urged Franky. I didn't say no. Just, this situation, you, look at the tide. Franky's face was embarrassed, and his words broke off. Didn't you say that the Sunshine Miles is super strong and has various hidden functions? What are you still ranting about? It will be too late, Captain, hurry him up. Usopp, who was in a hurry, was about to cry when he met Franky, who was in a hurry. Just use the one before you, blast. Enel, you know it, metal ball, ZZ. Charge. Usopp impatiently compared his gestures, and even explained it with gestures, and pulled the Enel wrapped around the electric light next to him. Yes, but no matter how strong the Sunshine Miles is, even if it is mixed with a little Pluton's drawings, it is only a ship, not Noah's Ark. Tidal forces, floods, etc., are not within his defense range at all. Franky told the truth with tears in his eyes. What? The last hope was shattered, and Usopp was completely panicked. Although, with the help of Enel, the reference of the Ark's proverb, the Sunshine Miles has the ability to float, but it must be powered by electricity or heat. Judging from the range of tidal forces and the enemies that are eyeing them, our motivation is simply not enough to escape from this place. Besides, I can feel that the magnetic field here has been disturbed, even more chaotic than Upside Down Mountain. In the unmarked sea, without the guidance of the magnetic field, we will all be lost in the sea. After prying open his mouth, he said it himself without needing to be urged by Usopp. When he wanted to, a flash of light flashed, as if he thought of something. In Franky's eyes, a hint of fear suddenly crept up. Chapter 242. Destruction of the ruins of the capital of Seven Waters. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. The ancient city under the Seven Waters capital was submerged in the tides. Even in the capital of Seven Waters, there is not a single ship that can escape the shipwreck. Do you think it's possible for us? Despair was written in Franky's eyes, thinking of the legend circulating in the Seven Waters. A terrible guess suddenly appeared in his mind. The tidal cataclysm that drowned the ancient city was man-made. Just like today's scene, it once happened in the ruins under the Seven Waters. As soon as this idea arises, Franky's heart grows irresistibly. In an instant, it occupied his entire mind. Pity. I'm dying now. I can't pass this news to the master, brother. Ooh, in this case, aren't we doomed? What should I do? I can't swim. I really have a disease that will kill me when I touch the sea. Upso sat on the ground with the buttocks, the slingshot in his hand was pulled at will, and his eyes were full of despair. Enjoy your last moments. Taste the taste of despair. Who told you to be the lamp cover that was designated to be extinguished by Lord Imam? Gia Gia Gia. Seeing the despair on Straw Hat Crew's face, the bald five elders finally cheered. When he finally found his place, he let out a difficult laugh with a strong expression on his face. Despair. We don't have this appetite, let's leave it to you to eat slowly. Just when he was laughing happily, Bai Yu's flat voice rang again on the field. Bai Yu, who was chatting with Robin and secretly opened another small stove, finally remembered that there was still a guy in the sky who had not solved it, and was reluctant to leave Wenru Township, so Shishiren walked out. You again. The bald-headed five elders frowned, and the unpleasant feeling in his heart became even stronger. It always feels like something is wrong, something is going to go wrong. That's right, what happened to me? Bai Yu pursed his lips and held back. Ignoring the bald-headed five elders, their eyes full of venom, they moved forward slowly. If eyes could kill, Bai Yu would have been ripped apart by that guy with his penetrating eyes. Deputy Captain. Upso tried his best to hold back his tears and looked at Bai Yu nervously, his eyes full of hope. Don't worry, with me here, these are all small problems. Bai Yu's face was relaxed, and he didn't pay attention to the things in front of him at all. The vice captain said it's fine, and he can finally relax. Huh, scared me to death. I thought I really had to explain it this time. This kind of terrifying tsunami can also be calmed down, and it really deserves to be the boss. Bai Yu's calm appearance brought immense confidence to his companions on the boat. Speaking of which, Upso, you are very brave today, thank you for greeting Nami for me. Bai Yu smiled at Upso. Deputy Captain. Woo woo. Actually, it's all thanks to Yan Shuangying. Upso was moved and ashamed. Moved by his actions, Bai Yu has been watching. Ashamed of myself in the end, I still didn't dare to face the battle, so I could only let that guy appear. No matter who it is, it's all part of you. Besides, I saw the way you used a slingshot to protect Nami before, so brave. Bai Yu waved his hand and gave a serious thumbs up. Prosperity depends on Luffy, adversity Upsuo is not for nothing. Although he has his own addition, Upso's performance opportunities are much less than the original. In Bai Yu's heart, he has always been very optimistic about him. Deputy Captain. Upso's face was so moved that he couldn't help it. Finally, I finally found Bull who can appreciate him. Enough. If you want to show brotherhood, go to hell for me to show it. Your time of death has come, give me all to die. Once again reduced to the background board, the bald-headed five elders, who were completely ignored, were completely angry. Terrifying tides, setting off monstrous waves. The sea swept the whole world, and the sky and the earth turned into a piece of Wang Yang. Laugh. It seems that someone can't wait for a moment, and can't wait to find death. The corner of Bai Yu's mouth curved, and he sneered. You're still here to talk nonsense to me when you're about to die. Ridiculous. The bald-headed five elders snorted coldly, and the first generation in his hand swiped forward with all his might. The long sword, which was full of blood, swung a bloody slash and slashed towards Bai Yu like a vent. One shot flow splitting void. Bai Yu didn't raise his eyes, and Jin Kunluo swung forward in his hand. The pitch-black slash pierced through the void, directly dissociating the blood-colored sword shadow into ashes. The swordsmanship of the five elders, in front of Bai Yu, is powerless to fight back. You don't really think that with one of the three ancient weapons, you can be invincible in this world. A slightly mysterious tone came out of Bai Yu's mouth. Are you trying to say that you also have three major weapons? The bald-headed five elders frowned and denied his guess in a blink of an eye. Impossible. Princess Shirahoshi has always been on the Fishman Island and has never come out, and Poseidon is still a child. It's impossible to compete with Uranus. Wow, I didn't expect you to know about the existence of Princess Shirahoshi. Bai Yu raised his eyebrows, somewhat surprised. With their own intervention, the Straw Hats directly cut off Jinbei after the Summit War. I haven't been to the Fishman Island at all. Logically speaking, Princess Shirahoshi should have been curled up in the hard-shell tower because she was hiding from 923 to avoid Vanderdecken IX's attack. Besides, with Princess Odoji's arrangement, Princess Shirahoshi should have been hiding her abilities. How could she be known by the world government far away? Things have become more complicated. Bai Yu frowned slightly, as if thinking of something, and suddenly said, how did you know that Poseidon exists? The power of Wonquan fruit and Shinigami advanced at the same time, and in Bai Yu's dark eyes, a blurred brilliance suddenly bloomed, and a strong power of concealment spread out along his eyes. As early as the year she used it when she was 6 years old, it was completely discovered by us. The power of Poseidon is most familiar to Lord Yimu. Besides, Lord Yimu was a close friend back then. Five Elders was caught off guard, and explained the situation like a bean in a bamboo tube. In the end, Uranus, suddenly exerted his strength, and the grandiose aura of the ancients emerged from him, abruptly dispelling Bai Yu's island trick skills. When he regained consciousness, he quickly closed his mouth, not daring to say another word. However, the few words revealed are enough to make people think. I found out a long time ago, and I couldn't help it. And that it seems that he has a close relationship with Poseidon. Bai Yu muttered to himself, the light in his eyes floated up and down, as if he was thinking about some clues. Chapter 243, The Second Star. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. What a pity. After thinking about it, I couldn't help but feel a little regret in my heart. Before on Nine Snake Island, I didn't fool the Empress Boa Hancock onto the boat. Otherwise, with the blessing of the Empress Sweet Fruit, I was caught off guard, and I would definitely let this guy tell the color of his bottoms. It's a pity that this opportunity is only one time, so you don't have to miss it. So close. The bald-headed five elders, who woke up, broke out in a cold sweat. Almost. Better yet. Fortunately, I finally closed my mouth. Lord Yimyu's secret was not leaked, otherwise it would be over if he went back. Humph. What the world government knows is far beyond your imagination. Pluto has already sunk, even if you have the design drawings of Pluton, judging from your adventurous experience, there is no time to build it. The bald five elders spoke eloquently. Facts have proved that what he said is true. There is only another kind of God's power that can resist the power of God. You shouldn't be so arrogant that you can use your own power to resist this natural disaster. The bald five elders grinned, the corners of his mouth full of disdainful mockery. One by one, the facts came out of his mouth. The heart that was originally very ambitious has gradually calmed down. 3 ancient weapons that symbolize ultimate power. Pluton is sleeping. Poseidon has not yet grown up. The only one who can show his mighty power is Uranus in his hand. As for Bai Yu, he admits that this guy's ability is indeed terrifying beyond imagination. It is unimaginable that such a powerful young man can be born in the current sea. The horror of individual strength, even he himself is far from an opponent. Roger, who was known as the Pirate King at the beginning, was afraid that he would have to bow down before him. I really don't know what the devil fruit he was taking actually had such a terrifying potential. But humans are humans after all. No matter how strong the fruit's ability is, it will be dwarfed in the face of natural disasters. You're right, with my current strength, I really can't resist the ancient weapon. Bai Yu nodded with a look of approval. Humph. Want to be soft? It's too late. You must die today. The bald-headed five elders had bitter eyes in their eyes. Let him age for 10 years of life, and now come to soft. Dream. Death is the only way back for these pirates. Moreover, they must all be buried in the belly of the fish. If you die, you have to die very ugly, otherwise how can you be worthy of his precious 10 years? Be soft. You seem to have misunderstood something. Poseidon, Pluton, as you say, is not of use for now, but Uranus is still here. Bai Yu raised his eyebrows, and a strange smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. God, Uranus, what do you mean? The bald five elders were startled. As if thinking of something horrible. For the first time, a flustered look appeared on the face of his old god. It's only a flash in the pan, but it's definitely true. It doesn't mean anything, it's just a literal meaning. Bai Yu's faint voice sounded on the field. The bald-headed five elders, who understood what he meant, could no longer suppress the unease in their hearts. The strong calm on his face was completely destroyed by GG in his heart. Unconsciously, there was a little panic in his eyes. You mean, you also have the power of Uranus? Impossible. You are definitely lying to me. Yes, you are lying to me. You want to pretend to be so confident to scare me off, right? Ha ha ha. Bald-headed five elders raised his head and laughed, his eyes glowing. He pretended to be calm and looked at Bai Yu calmly. With a look of, I have seen through everything and will never fall for the trick. Bai Yu sneered and shook his head. Uranus, the power of Uranus is not exclusive to you. Don't forget, on the astronomical model, there are 6 stars that revolve around the world. Bai Yu's tone was faint, staring at the sky, as if he meant something. Can't you? Bai Yu pretended to be mysterious, instantly destroying the composure he pretended to be. The indifferent face began to be occupied by anxiety. Before I could say anything more, a red bloody dragon suddenly shuttled across the sky. The bloody dragon gradually dissipated, revealing the figure of Bai Yu inside. The red steam rises on his body, and the silver hair tips are pregnant with a strong will. Bai Yu's eyes drooped down, as if he was groping for something. The power of destruction entrenched in his heart was not long after he recovered, and was driven again by Bai Yu. Jin Kunluo, who rushed out to his right hand, rushed frantically like the river water that opened the gate to release the flood. The sharp knife body was soon dyed with a dark color. Not good. No, don't worry, no matter how strong it is only the power of mortals. No matter how strong the fruit is, it is absolutely impossible to resist natural disasters. He is definitely bluffing. As time went by, Bai Yu's power became more and more dignified. It was so heavy that he could feel his breath, and he began to struggle. The bald five elders already smelled death from him. Had it not been for Uranus to rely on, in normal times, he would definitely turn around and run immediately, without any hesitation. Rao is so, There is still a deep sense of uneasiness in his heart. If he hadn't tried hard to brainwash and build his heart, he felt that he could hardly maintain his posture. Don't you want to face reality now? Bai Yu pouted and opened one hand slightly, as if pulling something. Then let me break your fantasy. The corners of Bai Yu's mouth cracked open and he shouted loudly. As his voice fell, the slightly dim sky suddenly burst into a dazzling brilliance. A star, another one appeared. Furthermore, it's even bigger than the previous star. Is it the end of the world today? How come the stars in the sky come one after another? East. A star-like star hangs high in the sky, shining brightly. For a while, it directly suppressed the brilliance of another star and the sun. Above the sky, there is only one color left, wanton exuding light and heat. As if to cater to his existence, the sea was already turbulent. Immediately, just like taking medicine, it tumbled violently, and the earth-shattering waves of hundreds of meters swayed wantonly, and the mud on the bottom of the sea was washed up. On the turbid sea, there are undercurrents everywhere, and there is an endless killing mechanism. Under the action of two opposing tidal forces, huge waves were constantly raised, slamming and killing each other, splashing endless water mist. Demonstrating the undeniability of his power. This is by no means an illusion, but a real another star. Chapter 244. Sengoku, why do I always have tears in my eyes? You, how can you have the power of God? How can the power of the Creator? The bald-headed five elders looked at the huge star in the sky, and the whole person was stunned. Unbelievable, a generation of ghosts waving his hands, struggling to drive the power of Uranus, maximize the influence of the tidal force, and want to break the illusion in front of him. But the huge vibration from the sea, and the collision with the waves, told him again and again that the power in front of him was true. It's definitely not an illusion, let alone a scene that devil fruit can create. But the real thing, another Uranus power. Actually, it's actually true. Bald-headed five elders, his throat was a little itchy, and his words became hard. In his heart, the speculation that was considered impossible was confirmed, and his whole person is now in a state of broken worldview. After disappearing for countless years, the world government has exhausted countless efforts to search for the sixth astral control power, which has not found a trace, and actually appeared in front of him like this. Moreover, the owner is actually the guy who ordered the lore, Lord I Am. This probability. If he knew about science, he must have shouted that it was unscientific. How is this possible? The bald-headed five elders looked at the sky and the battlefield with a suspicious look on their faces. There is an illusion like in a dream, am I dreaming? Fujitora, who was struggling to hold the main ship beside -923, protected the surviving marine from the influence of the wind and waves, and looked at the shaking stars in the sky, his face became strange. Squeeze the fruit of gravity to the limit. With a calm face on his face, the corners of his eyes now began to twitch. Hey, isn't this really the power of Jin Kunluo? Fujitora couldn't help but make a face at Sengoku. Nonsense. Sengoku looked up at the sky and wanted to cry without tears. That boy Bai Yu, with every gesture, obviously relies on Jin Luo to drive his power, and he has recently discovered some secrets about Jin Kunluo. The possibility that Jin Kunluo is related to Uranus has already exceeded 90%, and it can basically be a stone hammer. It can't be, that boy Bai Yu thinks it suits the situation, so let's deliberately learn the gestures of the five elders. Hey. Zung to Fujitora's face changed, Zongguo only felt a pain in his eyes. Change who, staring at a chrysanthemum full of pleats. All the while winking at him, waiting for a response, I can't stand it. The opportunity so close to the ultimate power was actually controlled by someone like this, and BCAA was thrown out from his own hands. Sengoku was bleeding in pain. He shouldn't use Jin Kunluo, how good it is to treasure it himself. Sengoku looked up at the sky and wanted to cry without tears. Why do I always have tears in my eyes? Because the sand sculptures under my hands are deep in my pit. Mass egg. Jin Kunluo, that guess can't be true. Does it really contain the secret of ancient weapon, and it was cracked by this guy? Fujitora, who had not received a response for a long time, suddenly had a bad feeling. No answer is the best answer. After realizing this, his face was filled with frustration and depression. In Marine's hands, having held it for so long, he has only recently discovered the clue. As a result, how long did it take to get into the hands of others? The secrets that were blocked inside were completely cracked, and they were used on the spot, and they turned the gun and took it to deal with them. Is there any reason for this? Even the good-natured Fujitora couldn't help but want to curse. His fists were rubbed tightly, and he looked like he was in a hurry. Fortunately, Fujitora had a big heart and a fat body. If it was replaced by the earlier Akainu, he would have been pissed off on the spot. Could it have something to do with Fujitora's anomaly? The accident of this matter, is it our Marine who made it up? Affected by the strange faces of Fujitora and Sengoku, Green Bull suddenly felt bad. A trace of panic flashed across his handsome face. No, this pot can't be carried. A stern look flashed in the Green Bull's eyes, and two strong winds quickly popped up at his fingertips, silently hitting Sengoku and Fujitora. Of course, it's not killing people. If there are two-finger pistols' ability to kill them in seconds, Green Bull doesn't need to mix here. Just take the opportunity to wake them up and let them restrain their expressions. Otherwise, if the five elders noticed something, Marine would really be singing cool. I have just sorted out a few high-level officials who are suspected of being undercover, and it was discovered that they wanted to get their hands on ancient weapons. What are you Marine trying to do? Properly supporting soldiers and wanting to rebel. Block. Sengoku and Fujitora quickly returned to their senses. They looked at each other and understood each other's intentions in minutes. They all raised their heads to look up at the sky, pretending to be shocked, to hide the unwillingness and panic in their eyes, and pretended to be ignorant of anything. The five elders, who were immersed in the shock of another star's appearance and caused the sky to collapse, are still immersed in their own world, and it is difficult to accept the reality. Of course, he was unaware of the change in the interior of Marine's high-rise. But Bai Yu, who has been paying attention to the changes on the field, did not miss these things. All in full view. It seems that the relationship between Marine and Aokiji's hands and the world government is not as close as it seems on the surface. Bai Yu smacked his mouth, and an inexplicable look flashed in his eyes. Just these few guys, looking at each other, Marine definitely did not share the secrets contained in Jin Kunluo with the world government. Jin Kunluo equals Uranus, a part of Uranus. Conspiracy Jin Kunluo equals conspiracy Uranus. In other words, Marine is secretly plotting ancient weapons without the knowledge of the world government. I don't know which party was instructing it, but it came from Aoi or Sengoku. But, for sure, the world government and Marine are definitely not monolithic. It's not a fuel-efficient lamp. Bai Yu chuckled and shook his head. These so-called old-time guys are really not simple. Although he saw through the mystery, he had no intention of saying it. Instead, he restrained the smile in his eyes and looked coldly at the sluggish bald five elders. Now, it's time for you to face reality. Dark colors lit up on Jin Kunluo. Like ink rendering, half of the sky was quickly dyed black. Bai Yu's eyes were flat, and a faint killing intent appeared in his cold eyes. Pirates of damn it. Despicable mortal, even if you want to read about the power of gods, what if it's a big deal? You will fight to the death. I want to see if the Uranus you drive is stronger, or the Uranus in my hands is stronger. The indifferent gaze returned to the eyes of the bald five elders. The first-generation ghost in his hand exudes a coquettish blood light, and the dark ink color forms a confrontation situation. Chapter 245. The anger is super backbone. It's a pity for these mortals below. The power of ancient weapons is hedging, and the natural disaster caused by it is not something that mortals can resist. Even with the most powerful fruit ability, under this endless natural disaster, they can still only indulge in death. Said words of pity and sympathy, but in the eyes of the bald-headed five elders, there was no sign of pity. Some are just endless indifference and aloof indifference. The tens of thousands of Marine soldiers below, as well as the tens of thousands of people in Wanokuni, were like ants in his eyes, completely ignored. In his mind, even General Marine, and even a top-notch combat power like the Three Admiral, might be a price that can be sacrificed. Ignoring the coldness of life, it makes one's heart chill. Let's fight against each other, show the power of natural disasters, and annihilate everything in this mortal world. Ha ha ha. The blood-colored knife was raised high, like a knife edge proclaiming the end. While looking up and laughing, it was full of Senran killing intent. Or, you can capture it without your hands. In the name of world government, I will spare your companion's life, and if you can avoid the trial of Eni's lobby, you don't need to be impelled down if you are acquitted. As for you, after handing over Uranus's controller, it can also give you a way out. Choose the fish to die and the net to break, and push all life into the abyss. Or choose to surrender and let everyone have the hope of life. I look forward to your decision. The five elders cracked the corners of their mouths, revealing a malicious smile. It's all your friends over there. In the deep words, there seems to be a devil's temptation. Bai Yu, don't fall for this guy. He must be lying to you, don't believe it. With the power of flower fruit, Robin's voice comes from all directions. For fear that because of their reasons, Bai Yu chose to surrender and gave up his last counterattack. Robin is right. We don't want to surrender. I'm the man who wants to become the pirate king, how can I fail here? As long as you work hard, you can definitely win. The rough-hearted Luffy began to yell in dissatisfaction when he heard the surrender. Compared with no meat to eat, something more terrifying has occurred. Surrender. Captain Idiot, do you understand? The power of this natural disaster is simply not something we can resist. Woohoo. If I had known, I would not eat the fruit of silence. Usopp cried out with a wow, snot and tears filling his face. As a person who is cursed by the sea, as long as he touches the sea, he will lose his strength, and trying to escape in the Wangyang Sea is simply a dream. Libu, do you want the deputy captain to surrender in exchange for our safety? Franky, who was in the mecha can, spoke angrily. How is it possible? Absolutely not. Usopp refused without thinking. Uranus is the only force that can resist natural disasters, and no matter what, it can't be handed over. The big deal. Just, let's fight. As long as the co-captain has that power, it'll be fine. Even if we only have the vice captain here, we can definitely avenge us, and Enel can fly, Jinbei can swim, and we can all be safe. Even if he was afraid of tears and snot, he was sobbing and talking, and the words were intermittent. Usopp remained the same, without any intention of letting go. Even if he knew, under this choice, he could not escape at all, and could only face death. He still didn't hesitate. Liar cloth, you are too. Franky looked surprised by his choice, and couldn't even find an adjective for a while. Wow, Upso, you are so strong today. Luffy gave a thumbs up full of admiration and said what everyone had in mind. Although my flying ability relies on electricity, it is simply not enough to cross this sea, but I also agree with Upso's opinion and must not surrender. Enel waved the golden stick in his hand, and his back was too loud and windless. Thunder and lightning swam around him, and the hip-hop style's face was full of posture. I can indeed swim, but I'm not sure how far I can swim in the tide, but... The word surrender is not in the Murloc's dictionary, and I agree. Jinbei grinned, revealing sharp white teeth. The hideous face is filled with the pride of coexisting and dying with his companions. Me too. Count me in. And me, and me. The figures of different heights and faces with different faces all said the same meaning. Dot for flowers oh. So many companions on the boat spoke in unison, and even half a different voice did not appear. Ah. That's a real friendship. The bald-headed five elders sneered, and the cold light in his eyes became more and more devoid of temperature. They gave their lives to support you, so what about your decision? Whether to enjoy their kindness and exchange their lives for a battle of will, or to give up useless face and give them a chance to survive. The malicious smile on the bald-headed five elders' hideous face also deepened. It was clear that he wanted to kill people and ignored life, but he took this responsibility on Bai Yu. The blood on first-generation Onikiru was extremely intense. It seemed that as long as Bai Yu uttered the half-yes word, Uranus would be completely motivated. Turn on the two-pole collision. Judging from his indifference to life, he would never set off a natural disaster. Hey, isn't this guy being real? Seeing that the collision between heaven and earth was about to begin, the restless green bull couldn't help but give Fujitora a look on his face. It's all over, what do you think? Fujitora's eyes were closed, and a trace of sadness flashed across his face. Can't save them after all. Rely on it. No way. This kind of terrifying tidal force, even in our heyday, has no certainty to escape. Getting a group of pirates to pay such a big price. Is it worth it? Fujitora, who was so heartbroken, couldn't give him any response, so Green Bull had to throw it to Sengoku head-on. Value. Sengoku lowered his eyes sadly. With his knowledge of world government and celestial dragons. Although they allowed Haichung to develop, they did nothing to rebel against the sea. Bounties were issued casually, and then they were handed over to Marine for disposal. But as long as they are faced with the existence of threats to their rule, the will and determination of the world government will definitely far exceed all of them expected. Not to mention these tens of thousands of soldiers, in their eyes, they can recruit soldiers at will, even if they are admiral, heroes, veteran marshals who seem to be high-ranking. And the one that can't be given up. It's purely to see if it's worth it. Unfortunately, for now, Bai Yu's performance is worth it. Totally worth it. Chapter 246, The Reversed Situation. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Now, the result of everything. It's up to him to decide. Sengoku looked at Bai Yu's not far away, his eyes extremely deep. Although this kind of consciousness has long been realized, it is inevitable that the event will come, and there will be a faint sadness. Bai Yu, Deputy Captain. Under the scorching eyes of everyone below, Bai Yu walked in the air unconsciously. Tap tap. Volleying empty steps, the empty air seemed to form a thick ladder under his feet. The slender figure walks on it, making a crisp sound, showing a first-class appearance. Humph. Still pretending to die. I want to see how long you can be arrogant. The bald-headed five elders snorted and cursed. Now, it's time to say your decision. Decide. Bai Yu raised his eyebrows, his face a little weird. 923. Of course. Do you choose to admit defeat and call Uranus, or let these companions who are willing to sacrifice their lives for you die for your face? The blood of the first-generation ghosts was radiant, and he put pressure on Bai Yu in front of him again. Force him to make a decision immediately, without giving any chance of delay. Laugh. Bai Yu sneered, and his face became even more eccentric. If you fool a child like you, let's take it. Hand over Uranus and let us live. Do you think I look like a 3-year-old, so easy to deceive? Bai Yu chuckled and shook his head, pointing to his handsome face, completely ignoring the threat of the bald-headed five elders. Then you just want your partner, for your sake, to welcome death with you. The bald-headed five elders turned cold. The indifferent eyes were full of murderous intent. The ghost of first generation in his hand seemed to be responding to his words, and the bloody light began to spread. In a word, Bai Yu was directly forced to a dead end. You can try. Bai Yu, who shook his head and chuckled, restrained the smile on his face. The gentle gaze suddenly changed, turning into a chilling cold. Do you think I dare not? The bald five elders shouted. The star hanging high above his head burst into a dazzling brilliance, and the undercurrent instigated by the tidal force directly engulfed several ships on the sea. There were casualties on the field, and the number of deaths was unknown. The ruthless means told everyone present how firm his determination was. What? In response to him, only Bai Yu sneered. If you dare to do it, I don't mind. Go to the Holy Land some other day, Mariajoy for a walk. Bai Yu frowned, showing no weakness at all. East. The star, like the morning star, as if responding to his determination, also burst into a dazzling light, which is not inferior to another star. Although there is no tidal force that emerges later, no one dares to underestimate him. You dare. The bald-headed five elders drank violently, their beard and hair stretched out of anger. A terrifying aura emanated from him, and Conqueror's haki overwhelmed the field. The miscellaneous soldiers with the strength below Vice Admiral, directly in front of him, passed out in darkness, nothing different but not better than that. You can bet on me. Bai Yu curled his lips in disdain, trying to overwhelm him even with this little momentum. Just kidding. His face turned cold, Conqueror's haki spewed out, and even more terrifying conquerors emerged from him, breaking through his aura like a bamboo, without a moment's hesitation. Or change it, bet if I can survive the natural disaster. Bai Yu raised his eyebrows and his eyes narrowed, revealing his strength without reservation. The raging thunder swam around, and the hot flames turned into wings behind him. An extremely strong sword intent emerged from his hands, and the rushing water turned into a throne to lift him up. What a terrifying power. Domineering and intuitive display, let five elders heart. Beating oneself to the kendo where there is no power to fight back is actually not the full strength of the opponent. No, it's not over yet, there's still a chance. No matter how strong the ability is, in the face of natural disasters, there will be a day when the strength will be exhausted. I haven't lost yet. Yes, I haven't lost yet. There must be a chance. Bald-headed five elders, clutching the first generation, with bloodshot eyes. It's not over. Bai Yu chuckled lightly and snapped his left hand slightly. A tall portal was suspended beside him, revealing the vast world behind the door. Dozens of different fruit abilities loomed over him. The power of terror is enough to defeat the confidence of all his opponents. The door fruit. Looking at the sudden appearance of the door, the world behind the door shrouded in white light. The bald five elders were completely torn apart. Although it is not the same as the green light recorded in the fruit illustrated book, other details are exactly the same, whether it is the pattern, or the way of appearance. Absolutely the fruit of the door. Damn. The bald five elders are angina. The whole person is like falling into the abyss, ever since he recognized this fruit ability. He no longer had any hope in his heart to rely on Uranus's power to kill Bai Yu. Door and door fruit. Devil fruit paramesha, any object touched by the fruit's hand will become a door and can be opened, and the door can be opened and exited freely at any place. It can be called Bug's mobility, and can travel through space at will. The only downside is that it focuses on escaping and is very lacking in attacking. 10. Bald-headed five elders, watching wantonly radiate power. Thunder, fire, water, sword intent, magnetic. All over the body, he controls dozens of abilities, and they are all developed to a considerable level of Bai Yu. Gollum. The saliva couldn't help swallowing. This guy's terrifying strength, even if it is Lord I Am. The bald-headed five elders started frantically, trying to get the guesses that shouldn't have been out of their minds. Compared to I Am Sama. But this thought, as if it had taken root, was completely rooted in his heart. Once there, it's hard to get rid of. But no matter what, the 0.0 bald five elders still can't afford to start with Bai Yu. This guy is simply a monster. It's not an existence that can be defeated by force at all. You, what are you trying to do? The voice of the bald five elders. He couldn't help but choked up, and he no longer had the aloof posture before. The look in Bai Yu's eyes changed from the cold one before. It has turned into a deep fear now, and there is even a trace of fear that seems to be absent. Me, probably what do you want to do? From the beginning to the end, it seems that you have been forcing me to send it. Bai Yu smiled slightly. Just kick the ball back. He is not the only one who can do this kind of thing. After occupying the absolute power, sometimes the initiative is deliberately delegated. On the contrary, it is easier to gain an advantage. Chapter 247. Captain of the Transport Brigade. You. The bald five elders gave him a deep look. Cut. Bai Yu pouted and avoided the past directly. Who is afraid of who? Could it be that he still kills with his eyes? The power of the world government is far stronger than you think. Hand over the power of Uranus, otherwise, the fate of being our enemy is not something you can bear. Lord I Am is not something you can resist. His lack of strength could not threaten Bai Yu, and the five elders, who were forced to helpless, of course had to move out of the backstage. How fresh. Bluffing is also a little new, isn't it? Could it be, do you think you can bear the fate of being my enemy? Bai Yu didn't take his words to heart at all. Anyone who has seen One Piece, who doesn't know that I Am is the final boss, who is half covered and half showed. Guess where it leads this time? Could it be Mariajoy? Bai Yu pushed it casually, and a door appeared in the air. Inside the door is a white space. And he has already half-footed towards this portal. Do not go. The bald five elders roared. Completely panicked on his face, Bai Yu let him go to 12 Mariajoy. Unpredictable, give the Holy Land a blast of Uranus, the tidal force of Uranus. The impact caused by the rolling waves is absolutely no less than the detonation of a nuclear bomb. If it spreads to the flowers, it will disturb the I Am Sama inside. That result! Exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. Thinking of that picture, he couldn't help shivering. His whole body was icy cold, and his hands and feet were instantly frozen by the cold current. You win. Let's go. The voice squeezed out of his teeth, and he said every word, gnashing his teeth. But the world government will never stop there. Unless you surrender Uranus, you'll never escape capture. Although he had a hard time eating, the bald five elders still did not forget to put down 2 scenes. Laugh. Let's go. Come when you want, and leave when you want. You're the home. Putting away the sneer on his face, Bai Yu's eyes were full of coldness. The killing intent filled the air, and the aura of the Asura sea of blood filled the air, and the thick bloody smell spread all over the field. What do you want? The bald five elders' heart sank. Now, it's hard to be kind. Since it's a war, of course the winner has to have the spoils, and the loser has to pay the price. Bai Yu curved the corners of his mouth with a smile on his face. Isn't it a normal operation to fight monsters and drop treasure chests? What do you want, Bailey? Gems. Gold. The five elders froze. In the end, it is a pirate who can never escape the greedy nature. Why do I want these waste papers? Of course, I want devil fruit. Same as last time, 20 is not too much. Bai Yu looked at the bald head opposite him, just like he was looking at moving a big treasure chest. Eyes full of joy, transport captain and the like, he likes it the most. I just sent him 20 devil fruits last time, which made his strength grow by leaps and bounds. Come again now. World government. Good people. 20. Impossible. The bald five elders broke the sound directly. Devil fruit is not an ordinary fruit, even the world government has limited collections. It took a lot of effort to find 20 garbage effects last time. In a short period of time, there is no way to find so many capable garbage. Moreover, even if the number is unlimited, he can't just agree. After all, in terms of Bai Yu's growth rate, devil fruit is definitely a big help to him. The strength is so terrifying now, if you give it 20 more, it will be worth it. Why? You don't agree. A dangerous look flashed in Bai Yu's eyes, and the meaning of the threat was almost clear. The last 20 devil fruits have emptied the world government's reserves. Up to 2 this time. As expected of the five elders. The higher the position, the more shameless it is, and the opening of the mouth will be cut by 1/10. You're bargaining at the vegetable market. This is life-saving money, at least 18. The bald head's bargaining technique almost made Bai Yu squirt out a mouthful of salt soda. 3. No more. 17. 4. The interior of the world government is empty, not a single one. The two of them were fighting with each other, you come and I go. I was stunned that a desperate battle was given to the address to bargain. The five elders were afraid of Bai Yu's surprise attack on Mariajoy, and Bai Yu was not afraid of Wanokuni's destruction. 2 people, that is a proper hemp pole to fight wolves, and they are fighting for their courage. 5. If there are more, then use strength to decide everything. The bald-headed five elders stared at Bai Yu, refusing to take a step. Compared to the destruction of tens of thousands of marines behind this monster in front of him, the consequences of becoming stronger again made him even more unacceptable. 10. Otherwise, Bai Yu's tone was faint, and half of his feet had already stepped into the white world behind the door. Squeaky. The sound of teeth and crunching was particularly harsh on the field where needles could be heard falling. With eye-to-eye and silent confrontation, the most test is courage and will. Row. I promise. The bald-headed fifth rear molars were all shattered, but they were still defeated in the end. 10 devil fruits will do. However, it can only be paid in installments. With the reserves of the world government, I can only give you 5 pieces first, and the remaining 5 pieces will be given after the collection is complete. The bald-headed five elders stared at Bai Yu with bloodshot eyes. There is a great sense of fighting against each other if there is a disagreement. It's not that such a big world government can't even get 10 devil fruits. And given 10 devil fruit at a time, the price of 923 making Bai Yu stronger is not something he can afford. If it really gets to that level, putting out fires is more important than filling holes. Good. With the eyes of the five elders almost popping out, Bai Yu nodded slowly. Although the toad seems to be able to wipe out the oil and water. But watching him push to the end, it looks like he is about to die. Bai Yu reluctantly closed his mouth. If he was dizzy, wouldn't it be a no-brainer? But, a smile appeared on Bai Yu's mouth. Dash dash. Standing in the air, the elegant figure suddenly moved. It turned into an afterimage and disappeared. What? The bald five elders' pupils shrank, and an unpleasant feeling emerged in his heart. Armed color emission. 1 blade stream profound truth. 1 blade Rakshasa. The outgoing armament Hockey Ling ran was incomparable. The slender blade is wrapped with a dark power of destruction. He smelted all the power in Bai Yu, gathered them in 1 second, and burst into a dazzling brilliance. In an instant, it crossed the distance of space and appeared directly on the head of the five elders. Asshole. Sweat dripped from his forehead like water. The cold air from the Tianling guy made him experience the feeling of falling into an ice cave once again. The knife has reached the top of the head. The terrifying slash is not something that evasion can take effect at all. Hard resistance is the only option left. Chapter 248. Broken Blade. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Drinking blood. Ghost slash. The power of destruction was finally wiped out, and the wound that was barely healed was instantly ruptured under his influence. Yin Hong's blood spurted out, as if he didn't want money, it poured towards the first-generation Gush knife. In the blink of an eye, the originally scarlet blade had turned into a heavy black and red. The red pistol chopped out from the blade and flew into the sky. Like a huge blood-colored river, it slammed into the slashing slash across the sky. Ultimate's black light devours everything. Light, air, sound. All media, communication, have been annihilated and become nothingness. Everyone present only felt that it was dark in front of them, and they waited until the vision was restored. Click. The sound of things breaking was the first to grab everyone's attention. In their astonishing work, the blood-stained, first-generation ghost, has met the dark Jin Kunluo. The pitch-black tip of the blade was firmly in front of the blood-colored blade. It was only a square inch away from the dead spot between the eyebrows of the bald five elders. If it wasn't blocked by that bloody river, the place where the sword tip penetrated is definitely his head. The crack was on his scarlet blade. Dash dash. The crisp sound of the sword crashing sounded. In the unbelievable eyes of everyone, he ranks among the 12 masters of the supreme sword and is known as the first-generation ghost of the world's fear of the demon sword. It was actually broken under the pitch-black tip. The black light that devoured everything, cut off everything that stopped him. Even the first-generation ghost couldn't resist his edge. In less than a moment and a half, this world-renowned demon sword was completely penetrated. Jin Kunluo, who cut off the shackles, continued to run towards the five elders. But first generation's ghostly sacrifice is still effective after all. There is a bloody river blocking the way, and first-generation ghost blocking the way. Although the time accumulated by the two is not much, it is enough to give him a breather. The bald-headed five elders, who are the top leaders of the government, are not simple people. Damn it! The bald five elders' pupils shrank, and their bodies swayed. As if moving in space, he disappeared directly under Jin Kunluo's blade. The shape-shifting room appeared not far from the right front, and the distance was about 2 or 3 kilometers. Bai Yu's eyes shone brightly, and Jin Kunluo wanted to chase again. Unfortunately, the bald five elders were already prepared. In the hands of the first-generation Gush, the blood-colored river gushed out along the sword light, although this kind of attack to Bai Yu was nothing but a hand to break. But, mean, do you want to die together? Bald-headed five elders' eyes were furious, the bright bald head was full of blue veins, and in the blood-colored eyes, there was a determination to break the net. With eternal life and a high status, of course, cherish life and fear death. But in the face of the doomed death, as a top swordsman, he will definitely not lack the bloody nature that would rather be broken than broken. The stars above the head burst into a dazzling brilliance, and the ocean beneath the feet rolled over the distance under the instigation of the tidal force. In an instant, an unknown amount of territory was engulfed. Cough, do you believe me when I said my hand slipped? Bai Yu slapped his mouth. Slowly taking back the Jin Kunluo in his hand, he explained without any sincerity. What do you say? The bald-headed five elders stared at Bai Yu, not daring to miss a little detail about him. Just like this, I was caught off guard by this guy and slashed. If it weren't for the vigilance of the swordsman, he suddenly pulled his sword back to defend at the last moment, and now the grass on the grave is 3 feet tall. Ah, I just missed. It's not good for everyone to die together, right? Bai Yu couldn't stop laughing, his tone softened a bit at first. Yes. The bald-headed five elders gave Bai Yu a deep look, and finally nodded. The situation is stronger than the people. Everyone has given them ladders, and if they don't go down the slope again, donkeys. It's really about to make trouble, and the situation of life and death is not the result he wants. The older the rivers and lakes, the less courageous. That's good. Bai Yu nodded and continued. But don't forget my devil fruit. As he spoke, there was a smile in his eyes. Although I didn't take the opportunity to kill this guy. But getting 20 devil fruits is great. At least, it's enough to make his own strength once again leap forward. Good. People have to bow their heads under the eaves. The five elders, always arrogant and aloof, in front of Bai Yu. He lowered his proud head in humiliation. If that's the case, then this time it's over. Bai Yu smiled with satisfaction. The electromagnetic force originating from Nami was used in a new way by Bai Yu. A powerful suction quietly emerged. He directly took half of the first-generation Onito, scattered on the battlefield into his hands. Yu, watching openly, a part of his beloved sword fell into the hands of the enemy. The bald-headed five elders suddenly cracked, and the words squeezed out from the gap between the teeth. How? Bai Yu turned his head sideways, raised his eyebrows, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. No, it's fine. The bald-headed five elders were just about to show off. The blood on the first-generation ghost has not had time to spread. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Jin Kunluo, who was black in Bai Yu's hand. The black light hurt his eyes. It was as if a basin of cold water was poured over the head, and the whole person suddenly woke up. Fishing law enforcement. The bald-headed five elders' pupils shrank, and they understood Bai Yu's intention at once. He clearly wanted to anger him, make him lose his mind, and then take the opportunity to kill him. After figuring this out, the bald-headed five elders dared to fry their hair. They were instantly furious, curled up under the light of the stars, not daring to move, for fear that Bai Yu would find an opportunity. Promised good. Anyway, Bai Yu's actions didn't touch his bottom line. No matter how precious a sword was, it couldn't compare to his life in his heart. Cut. It's boring. Plan failed. Bai Yu pouted and looked at the tip of the knife in his hand board. The color of the knife is scarlet. Even if it is a broken blade tip, it still exudes a coquettish blood light, a strong bloody smell. I don't know how much blood is poured into it. After playing around a few times, Bai Yu threw it directly to Zoro beside him. Nuo, the blade of the first generation ghost, originally wanted to get him all over, but something went wrong, and that's all that's left. Bai Yu's usual swordsmanship is one shot, and with Jin Kunluo in his hand, even if the first generation Gush is also a supremely fast sword, he is not very interested in changing swords. What's more, what I got was just the tip of a knife. Rather than making ashes in his hands, it's better to give it to Zoro to strengthen his strength. He just started second generation Ghost. Chapter 249. Goals and Agreements. This, Vice Captain, thank you. Taking over the scarlet broken blade in his hand, Zoro looked at Bai Yu with gratitude. Thank you. Don't need it, it's useless to me, it can only exert its greatest effect in your hands. Bai Yu waved his hand and stopped Zoro's grateful words. Deputy Captain. Tough guy Jonao's rare eyes flashed with water. At the risk of himself, he broke the sword of the world's strongest swordsman. Just to give him his broken blade as a token to encourage his own growth. Zoro held the broken blade in his hand tightly, letting the blood cut through the palm of his hand, and his face did not change color. I will definitely kill him. I will definitely get it with my own hands, and the rest of his blade will complete our agreement. With watery eyes full of determination. There was an unmistakable taste in the deep voice. Zoro bowed his head and fused the broken blade tip into second generation Gedo, said so. Axie. Promise. Bai Yu looked at Zoro with a bewildered expression, and didn't understand what was going on. But, in that case, it seems to be good. Feeling the burning fighting spirit on Zoro's body, Bai Yu nodded in satisfaction. Pushing the boat along the way, high-fiving said, that's right. It's a promise, I believe you. Damn it. Looking at 923's own saber, it was donated in front of him. He was also treated as a target to be killed at will, and his bald-headed five elders had nearly gnawed his back molars. But under the shock of his Jin Kunluo, he did not dare to act rashly. I can only curse in my heart. This guy is simply a devil. The faint smile at the corner of Bai Yu's mouth, in the eyes of the bald five elders, was no different from Shinigami smiling at him. 5 devil fruits will arrive in a few days, and the remaining 5 will be delivered immediately after the world government has raised them. After explaining the delivery of devil fruit, the bald-headed 5 elders looked at Bai Yu with a wary expression. Seeing that he didn't move, he couldn't wait to evoke Uranus's power. For fear that Bai Yu would make another moth, he didn't dare to wait for a moment. Under the instigation of the tide, the waves swept the boats under the feet and sailed quickly into the distance. He directly ignored the remaining marines on the field and disappeared at the end of the sea. Leaving the old, the weak, the sick, admiral, and some 2 good friends who had retired for many years, led marines remnants to stay on the battlefield pitifully. Call. The natural disaster confrontation finally ended. The bitter Fujitora was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief and removed the gravity lingering on the field. Ka. Lifted to the sky by him, away from the host that the waves eroded. In the screams of the survivors on the ship, they fell from the sky after losing the traction of gravity. It smashed heavily on the sea, splashing thousands of feet of water, and the foam that was lifted paved half of the battlefield. This ship is a newly developed high-end cargo. The base is covered with seastone by Vegapunk, otherwise Fujitora's rough treatment would have to break it into pieces of wood under the huge impact. Whoa. Fujitora gasped heavily. All the muscles in the body twitched due to the excessive use of the fruit power. Haoshuin recovered from this deadly state, but when he raised his head, he bumped into Bai Yu's handsome face, and his whole body became numb in an instant. For the first time, Fujitora hated her because she was too sensitive. Embarrassed. I can't wait to have another breakout. Muscle twitches that are dead or alive are better than this torment. Although he really wanted to pretend to be crazy and pretend he didn't see it, Bai Yu's half-smiley expression made him teary-eyed to break this delusion. Bai Yu. It's been a long time. I don't know that last time we were on Cake Island, you said that we used the hands of the 5 elders, first-generation ghosts to exchange for Jin Kunluo's promise. Is it still a number? Then, in fact, we came today to make a deal with you. As for why the 5 elders fought with you, I really didn't expect it. Fujitora tightened her purple bathrobe and daringly opened her mouth. Anyway, the situation has collapsed to such an extent that it is not easy to gamble BCAA on it. Maybe his brain is short-circuited. The self-sacrificing Fujitora, without the slightest hope, broke the deadlock by talking nonsense. Chant. Bai Yu flicked Jin Kunluo's blade and let out a soft moan. His eyebrows were slightly curved, and he glanced at Fujitora lightly. What do you think? Hey. Then, that shouldn't be possible. Fujitora couldn't stop laughing. Cold sweat broke out on the face of the gully. Bai Yu's plain glance just now made him feel like he was facing death. The fruit's power is exhausted, and with the sword in his hand, Fujitora has no chance of fighting him. As for why, is the lesson from the bald-headed five elders not enough? Bai Yu, for the sake of the soldiers' innocence, please let them go. Most of them are recruited, and they have nothing to do with the grievances between us. Besides, in the battle just now, they basically did not cause casualties. What Fujitora said is basically the truth. Judging from the intricate development of the battlefield just now, it is true that these trash fishes can't get in. Finally, all guns fired at once, brushing a sense of existence. In the end, he ran into Nami Daihatsu Kamui, was stopped on the spot and did not say anything, and in turn suffered a big loss. Then it's straight to the top Marines, and it's the Straw Hat crew. Then the Sengoku GARP came in one after another. In the end, the five elders pulled Bai Yu, and a natural disaster confronted him, pulling the war in an unpredictable direction. This group of bottom trash fish, after the whole battle, didn't even have the chance to make soy sauce. Bai Yu, please. At a critical juncture, Fujitora thought of pleading for his subordinates. Che, I'm not interested in these things, and asking for forgiveness is also looking for the wrong person. Bai Yu glanced at his mouth and didn't answer at all. Marine was never his intended opponent. Especially in the case of watching Marine, and the world government have a wake-up call. His interest in taking Marines' shots and destroying them was even more extreme. Really thinks he's a fool, can't see the purpose of the five elders leaving Marine on purpose, just to vent his anger and kill them all, and then he can condense the rest of the power into a rope. Please, beg the wrong person. Generous, ruthless, and demanding. For Bai Yu's various reactions, Fujitora rehearsed them in his mind, and prepared countermeasures. This is the only one that greatly exceeded his expectations. A look of astonishment appeared on the face of the gully. Of course, the Lord is there. Bai Yu nodded with a face that was right. Turning his face towards the capital of flowers, he pouted in the direction of the coastline. Since I don't want to kill the remaining Marines, I plan to leave them to find fault with the world government. Then the pot, of course, has become the best choice. Chapter 250. Weak countries have no diplomacy. Light. Shameful photos of athletes during competitions. Master. Fujitora looked in the direction Bai Yu pointed. A woman in a kimono with curly hair. A group of subordinates of various shapes followed behind them, standing on the coastline and looking at the battlefield from a distance. Doesn't look like a simple guy. The leading ones are very powerful, and they can barely compare with the elite vice admiral of naval headquarters. Them. Fujitora looked at Bai Yu in confusion. Although this group of unexpectedly appearing guys has good strength. But it's not the same thing at all compared to the super spec power of Straw Hat crew. Fujitora wasn't sure what medicine Bai Yu was selling in the gourd this time. He is headed by the current general of Wano-kuni, Kazuki Hiyori. The rest are her bodyguards, namely the Red Sheath 9 heroes, Kinemon, Kikuno-chung, and Cat Viper. They are the masters of Wano-kuni, and you invade the kingdom of others. If you want to ask for mercy, of course you have to find the right master. Bai Yu's face was indifferent, and he explained with a light smile. A few strange colors flashed in his eyes. Unexpectedly, this group of guys could survive the aftermath of the battlefield intact. It seems that the strength is not as bad as he imagined. Wano-kuni. I see. Fujitora lowered her head, thinking about lightning in her heart. After the expression on his face changed several times, he finally calmed down. Dash dash. A purple light flashed, and Fujitora, who was standing on the bow, arrived in front of Kazuki Hiyori in a blink of an eye. Sing. Someone's sudden arrival immediately aroused the vigilance of the Red Selling 9 heroes, and they all drew their swords and pointed at Fujitora. Don't worry, I have no malice. Gollum. Although he said that, none of the people facing Fujitora dared to relax. On the contrary, the hand holding the sword tightened a bit, obviously becoming more nervous. Even if the fruit power is drained, with his unique swordsmanship and martial arts, Fujitora's strength is still not to be underestimated. The admiral, whose eyes were closed, gave them no less pressure than facing Kaido face to face. If it weren't for a faintly strong backer, Bai Yu, he would be watching the formation not far away. They've already run away with buckets. This should be the general of Wano-kuni. What? Fujitora slowly opened his mouth to Kazuki Hiyori. Knowing the situation clearly, he kept his attitude low, and as soon as he spoke, it caused Kinemon's astonishment. Fortunately, Kazuki Hiyori, a general, stabilized his mind. Yes, it's me. Forced to hold a posture, refused to show cowardice. This time Marine entered the island of ghosts and destroyed Kaido's lair. He carelessly listened to his subordinates' words, and hurriedly led the fleet into Wano-kuni, in an attempt to wipe out the remaining remnants of Kaido. As a result, it turned out to be all rumors afterwards, but the huge losses caused to your country are irreparable, and the world government is willing to make full compensation. Please believe that Marine has always been committed to the work of peace in the sea. This time, it was the conspiracy of the traitor that caused the war. I hope the generals will forgive me. Fujitora tightened her bathrobe. Leaning forward slightly, he made a gesture of apology to a weak woman. As expected of a high-end politician, his brain is definitely enough for Luffy 18 streets, with 2 turns. I immediately understood what Bai Yu was saying. When talking nonsense, he talks endlessly without blinking his eyes. But being blind, Fujitora didn't have to blink. Making up random drafts without typing them is just nonsense to anyone with a discerning eye. But Kazuki Hiyori really did. Since it's a misunderstanding, it's fine. This elegant girl, a little tangled, flashed in her eyes. In the end, he bit the bullet and recognized Fujitora's nonsense. Even Kinemon, who has always defended the dignity of Wano-kuni and followed the Kazuki clan with his life, and the other 9 heroes of the bestsellers, did not have a strange expression on their faces. It's not that they have low IQs, and they can't see Fujitora's lies. Anyone with a discerning eye knows that Fujitora lowered his stance and confessed his anger entirely because of Bai Yu's face. Without that eye-opener, one would think Wano-kuni, who has the qualifications to make Marine a small one. After losing the existence of Kaido, to put it poorly, just relying on the natural dangers of the inner and outer seas, want to stop Marine's invasion. It's purely a dream. As for the Straw Hat crew, and the terrifying being who manipulates the natural disaster, Bai Yu. Even Hiyori, who was immersed in love, would not think that Bai Yu would give up sailing with his partner for himself and choose to stay in Wano-kuni. Now people can't go down the stairs until Bai Yu leaves. Even if you are concerned about the Straw Hat crew, don't dare to attack Wano-kuni on the bright side. For flowers oh. But with Marine's power, secretly trying to stumble him, isn't it easy? As for Fujitora Admiral, let's forget about compensation. He was tangled for a while, and there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. As a wise man, he gave up Marine's compensation after all. If a weak country has no diplomacy, even if it is a victory, how can it dare to ask the powerful country for spoils of war? Straw Hat crew is not Kaido and cannot be resident in Wano-kuni. She couldn't bear the risk of reckoning after the autumn, and Wano-kuni couldn't bear it even more. No, how can this be forgotten? Since the damage has been caused, of course compensation must be paid. Our world government is not an agency that acts recklessly. Fujitora waved his hand, his face full of seriousness. This is really unnecessary. This is possible. The two turned around several times, but Fujitora's attitude was still resolute. Moonlight Riwa also became numb. Looking at Fujitora's meaning, it doesn't seem like a scene, but really wants to give compensation. Not knowing what to do, he could only look at Bai Yu with an embarrassed expression. Okay, then I'll take it. After receiving Bai Yu's encouraging look, Kazuki Hiyori dared to agree to compensation. That's great, then I'll say goodbye. You're done. Fujitora's bitter face finally got a hint of joy. I finally handed over the money for my life, and I can leave with peace of mind. Suppressing the sea dignifiedly, defending the righteous Marine. It has fallen to such an extent. Bow your head in front of the pirates in exchange for a chance to survive. Thinking about it, it's really inexplicably sad. Fujitora couldn't help shaking his head. For Marine's new blood, his face is not worth mentioning. The same purple light flashed as when it came. Fujitora, who was running moonwalk, stepped directly into the air and returned to the ship. Farewell. Fujitora didn't want to stay in a place of right and wrong for a moment. While saying goodbye to the Wano-kuni crowd, he quietly let the helmsman sail the boat. For fear that it will change later, if Bai Yu changes his mind, then this time it will be really cool. Seizing the limited opportunity, inheriting the fine tradition of world government, hurriedly ran away with Marine carrying a bucket. 0.